and welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. Thanks for joining us on this holiday edition of Google Plus Week. Great to have you with us. We have a wonderful panel assembled as always. I'll begin in Rochester, New York, where Mr. Anthony Clouser is here. Anthony, welcome, sir.
Hello, Dan.
And we have Bruce Turner from Lynchburg, Virginia. Bruce, welcome. And he has no audio. The best voice in the whole show.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I think we have some sort of issue with Bruce tonight. Craig Shipp is here from Sarasota, Florida, usually from Frederick, Maryland, always with Hangout10.com. Craig, welcome.
Always good to be here, Dan.
In Colorado, Monica. Welcome, Monica.
Hi, guys. Good to be here.
And in Augusta, Georgia, we have Mr. Michael Banks. Michael, welcome, sir.
Oh.
He's bilingual. Oleg Moskalinsky joins us from Kirkland, Washington, home of Costco and Google Hangouts and Amazon.com. They're a Microsoft.
Google Hangouts, exactly.
Absolutely. And joining us from Menifee, California, Pam Adger. Welcome, Pam. Hey, Pam.
Hello.
How you doing? Good to have you here, Pam.
Thanks for having me on the show, Dan.
And to Pam's right, figuratively and otherwise, we have Sheila Dubois. Sheila, welcome in West Jordan, Utah, near Salt Lake City.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
She's going to train us in how to use our weapons later.
Oh, yeah, right.
And in New York, we have Mr. Alan Furstenberg. Alan, good to have you with us as always.
Dan, a pleasure as always.
And this is our fifth take or something. I don't know, but I think we got it nailed down. But okay,
and if not, we'll find out in 4 hours.
Absolutely. It was kind of a slow news week, and we're kind of grasping for topics here. But we're going to do a little year-end wrap-up stuff. But there was some news about Pages, and it's being characterized in different ways.
Yeah. Before we get into Pages, I want to give a little assignment to all of our viewers. As you know, we always take comments. We always love sharing your comments. So I'm going to tell you a question that we're going to talk about later. We're going to talk about some of Google's hits and misses for the year. We've got some of our own. The panel here is going to be sharing theirs. And as always, we want our viewers to be sharing your Google and Google Plus hits and misses for the year. So warm it up now. We'll be getting to that at some point in the next 4 hours or so.
All right. Well, go ahead. Let's talk about the big news. A lot of folks were excited about this. Wish Ronnie could have joined us. The Next Web interviewed him, and he was helping the Next Web figure this out. But why don't you give us sort of the basic rundown of Pages, some of the earlier criticism they got as far as how useful they were initially, and what has changed dramatically now as far as the new commenting ability, and also what's coming down the pike as far as analytics.
Sure. The big thing about Pages is that when they first launched, one of the major differences between a page and a person, or a page and a profile, was that Pages couldn't just automatically start sending to people and automatically adding people to their circles without that person circling them first. So a person had to express an interest in a page before the page can interact with them in any way. That appears to have been lessened at least a little bit within the past couple of days, so that Pages can now, they can't automatically just start sending out messages to people, but they can do things like reply in comments to other people's posts. A lot of people are saying this is great. Now Pages can actually start interacting with people who haven't had them followed. If it's a subject that a page makes sense to talk about in, they can now join in on the conversation. The downside is a lot of people are very, very worried that what's going to happen is that Pages will now start using this opportunity to spam. And Ronnie, in his posts about it today, as he explored it and discovered it and announced it, kept emphasizing and kept driving home the post, look, Google's done this for us. We can't abuse it, or they're just going to take it away from us again. And that's pretty much what the whole argument's been centering around all day.
Well, that's nice wishful thinking, and Ronnie is, an optimist. But obviously, if there's an opportunity to abuse something, some folks, these spammers and stuff are going to do it. Let me ask Oleg, because you have a business and an online business. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a good thing, or are Pages something you're using? Is it helping? What do you think?
Yeah, Pages is something I certainly use, and one of the things that I didn't like about Pages was the fact that it's so limited. I mean, it's one of these situations where it's strictly for people you're dealing with. You kind of tell them that you have the page, and then they will, if they want to, they can follow you. But you cannot proactively go and actually try to, project whatever you want to relate to people like you can do from your personal profile. And I personally always thought it was a mistake, not because of the fact it would be spammed or it wouldn't be spammed. It just, like from a regular account, to me it should have worked like a regular account from the get-go. I think for the business purposes it would work a lot better. And I think what they're doing, I think it's actually a good thing. Could there be spam? Most likely there will be some spam. But I think it's a better way to use Pages. I mean, that's my feeling right now. I mean, what they did with communities, they thought I would jump to communities and forget the Pages completely because communities don't have this limitation, and you can still have categories. You can talk about different, topics dealing with the business at hand, things like that. So I thought this was great. The communities will basically, it's a fix for the Pages limitations. But now that they're opening the Pages somewhat, I can see each one having its own merits and drawbacks. And I think there is a fine balance between using these various entities to project whatever your business initiatives are.
Yeah, I think so. I think it could be. It's a mixed bag. For example, like Sarah Hill with Veterans United, if a veteran posts an interesting story, she could comment, or someone on her team could comment as that page, and I think that the veteran will be flattered to get the comment, and they would perhaps discover that page would be relevant to them, used in the right way, as Alan said. Who else wants to weigh in on this?
I
Anybody?
will.
Go ahead, Monica.
Well, I've seen people abusing Pages in a different way. Like there are these circle reshare pages that people basically, like I've seen people create multiple circle reshare pages and then basically say, if you reshare this circle openly, you'll be in the circle tomorrow in order to get more followers. And then people will create 20 or so of these pages and call them shared circles, circle share, and one person will create 20 of these, put a bunch of their friends in it, reshare these circles in order to manipulate follower count. And so that's another way that people abuse Pages. If there's a way to exploit the system, they will exploit it. And so I think what Google has to do is just have people that are constantly on the lookout for people that are manipulating and abusing Pages.
Well, I guess they've had a long. I guess we have a comment from Alan, then we'll go to Craig for his thoughts on this. Alan?
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments. The first one is from George Cozy. I was really glad when Pages appeared naively. I thought I could use them to blog on Google+. I can't for some reason. They seem inadequate. George, don't get me started when it comes to blogging. You know that. And then this one from Michael Daniels. In communities, we now get enough people that just don't know how to enter posts. I can see this with Pages becoming even more noise. And I agree with that. I can see how this would cause more noise in communities and more noise overall. But, we'll see.
Yeah, they took their time with this, right? I mean, they could have turned this on from day one, and they chose not to. So I'm guessing they put some algorithms in place. Right, Alan? I mean, they probably have anticipated, aggressive, with circle adding.
Why
they
would
said
you
don't
guess
aggressively.
that?
Yeah, why would Google, who would think Google would come up with an algorithm for something? The term they used was, initially you weren't supposed to aggressively add people to circles. You weren't supposed to aggressively circle, circle 1,000 people. And then, see who circled, and then uncircle them and circle 1,000 more. They picked up on that. Chi was talking about that. So I'm guessing they're going to have a similar type of control here. Craig Shipp, you've been a friendly critic of Pages. I'm being diplomatic. What are your thoughts on that? This is a big day for businesses, right, that are trying to...
I created some pages, and I haven't used them since. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that did the same thing. It seems like to me, if Google is trying to get people to use this new service called Google+, don't bring out half-baked, neutered products. I mean, if you're going to bring out a page for a business to have a presence on this platform, bring it out and let it have the full capabilities of any other account. I mean, you can't have it both ways. If you want these people to participate and use the service, you can't give them something that one of their hands is tied behind their back. It's the same thing with just today when I post something to my stream, and I want to, let's say I want to share it with Monica, I want to share it with Dan, I want to share it with my Frederick circle, and then I want to share it with my Frederick community. Oh, guess what? I can't do that. So communities are neutered. So I mean,
and events are neutered because you can't invite more than a certain number of people.
I gave up on events on day 2. I gave up on events as well. Notifications don't work. Other than all of these things, Google's got it right.
We'll get to the misses later in the show, Craig.
All right, so let's switch gears here.
Before we move on, and I'm trying to get a comment in and it hasn't shown up yet. Gerwin did point out one thing about how this was structured that was well done, and that's that non-circled pages, you still can't notify or mention spam somebody, so they can't spam you just by mentioning your name. You won't get the notification on those cases. So they're still limited in some ways to make sure that their spamming abilities aren't quite what everyone would like them to be. Let's put it that way.
Alan, I don't understand this talk of spam. I mean, if they're going to spam, we can report them, right? If enough people report them, then they should just be kicked out. I mean,
and then they'll just come back with another account and do it all over again.
And the big, I think,
and eventually just block them completely.
But how do you block them completely?
Make the owner of the page visible. How come they're not visible? How come the moderators of these pages aren't visible?
They could do that as well. Absolutely. There's a lot of things they could do.
I have people blocked. I have people blocked for a reason, and it pisses me off that they could create a page and come back and stalk me. That's bullshit.
That's right.
Pam. As
Sorry,
Pam
Dan.
dusts off the halo above her, we don't say that until like hour 3.
You're being too logical though, Pam, and unfortunately these Googlers for some reason don't want to be logical.
Well, some of the stuff on the spam. Go ahead, Alan.
Craig, you just said that a bunch of people who do nothing all day but apply logical systems and logical programming are not logical. I think you're wrong on that point.
Okay,
I think you're wrong on what? I think you're wrong on that point. They are logical. If anything, they are too logical.
Okay, that's right. They're not real world savvy, and they're not using the product the way real people use it, and they don't.
There's no such thing as real people using their product.
That you're right there too.
He's right though. They do have a real. And I didn't understand this term before, though. And Eric Rice, I don't know if you guys know who Eric Rice is.
He's been on the show.
He said that he grew up in. He said that they have a Silicon Valley mindset, and that it's very different than the real world, and that the whole pseudonym thing that came up when I first joined, and they were like, "Why would anyone want a pseudonym?" And this whole, but that's that's different than the real world. In the real world, people might want a pseudonym because they might not want someone to stalk them.
Which is funny because pseudonyms in Silicon Valley are even more prevalent than they are elsewhere. I mean, that's that
yes. One. Let's not do the pseudonym thing, though. It's been so overdone.
We've discussed that a few times in the past.
Just once or twice on this show.
Yeah. I think Prisoner, that's why you joined. Okay, so the spam thing, as far as this, we'll get to analytics in just a second, but the spam thing is you still can't control everything. Like, if someone comes in, I'm flattered when someone +1s one of my posts, but sometimes when you get somebody who will go down your stream and +1 like 50 things, and then you have 50 notifications. First of all, you get all excited because you think you have mail or something, right? And then you go and you're like, and then once it's over 15, you've got to go click the all, and those are not as telling. It doesn't always, especially on page 2, it doesn't say why. So if you catch the notifications before it hits 15, you're in good shape. But after 15, it's like, and so then
And
you got to
then-
spend 10 minutes.
And then at 99, you're lost. Like, you're stuck. It's broken. You can't retrieve them.
Yeah, it's crazy. So,
Price of success.
and there's no way to turn off +1 notifications, right? Is that correct?
Yes, you can. In fact, I have my notifications set to only notify me when someone from my circles does something.
I wish
If they're
you had
not in
more
my
control.
circles, they can't.
I wish you had more control. If someone plus mentions me and says, like, I had a question about a legitimate thing, I want them to be able to
Right.
communicate with me. But at the
Right.
same time, I don't want Rajneesh to +1 50 of my posts,
Yep.
and get 50 notifications for that.
Right.
So, and there's no way to
This is
differentiate.
part.
Yep.
This is part of the problem with the whole thing. Is you got different people trying to use this in different ways based on their own preferences, and you got people like Eric Rice who says that Googlers just don't get it. They're total morons. They have no idea what they're doing. They're not even people from this planet. The actual English translation is these people are not like Eric Rice, which makes them alien to him. Doesn't mean that they're alien in general, as described. It just, everybody has their own preferences, and obviously those guys do have a lot, I agree with Alan, a lot more logic than most regular users, and they have a lot more knowledge, and thus they design stuff from obviously their perspective and the best of what they can come up with collaboratively. It's not just some one guy. It's not like Vic gets in his office for the bunker for a week. He comes up with some ideas and everybody implements them. It doesn't work. I'm sure it doesn't work like that.
I think
But the bottom line is you have, one second now, the bottom line is you have all these people that want what they want. And of course, everybody is different, so you wind up with a hodgepodge of this is wrong because it's not the way I want to use it. And over here we're talking about pages being open, and instead of people looking at, okay, from my business standpoint, if I'm actually going to use pages for my business, what is my end result? What am I trying to accomplish by using pages? No, they immediately get into this deal about spam. Spam. Did they get spam? No, but they could. Now they could get spam. So the whole discussion takes on a totally different tone. Instead of looking at it from a standpoint, these are the features. How can I use it to enhance whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish? Immediate reaction is spam. It's going to be spam. I can't have spam.
Oleg, I was so with you for most of it until you went off the deep end at the end there. The problem is Google's looking at it from their perspective. What do they want people to do and not do? And the answer is one of the things that they don't want pages to do is to spam users. That's plain and simple. And that's the reason why they focus on it like that.
But part of the problem is that, like we were talking about notifications, a lot of the stuff in Google+, they try to put as many, maybe not as many controls. There's a lot of control about notifications, what you could do, what you couldn't. People don't do it. That's the problem.
There. No, there's a balance there. Part of it is that people also get overwhelmed by options, which is why what they try to do is give you as many choices as they think that you can reasonably handle. And there's a lot of work and a lot of studies that go into that.
It's far too many choices for the average user. Plus, it's so complicated. That's why you don't see the majority of people here.
Right. And
But on this thing, back just like my +1 thing, don't you wish you could have a little more option to where if someone wants to send you a true message,
Dan, but here's the problem.
Without spamming you with these community invites for
Dan, yes. The problem is I not only want that, but I want about 90 more options. And that's when you start running into problems.
But how many of you guys are getting completely irrelevant community notifications in languages you can't even read to know what it's about?
All of us. The problem is how do you set that up in a way that isn't going to overwhelm the average user who joins in, who is already overwhelmed?
Exactly.
The average user can't even figure out how to use what they have now.
Wait a minute, Alan.
Exactly. No, I agree with that.
Wait a minute. Can't they just look at the way they do Gmail? I mean, why don't they give us
90% of the features in Gmail aren't used by 90% of the users.
That's right. I use the inbox and the trash.
They could
That's
give
it.
Dan an option to have certain types of notifications, for example, community invites.
Guys,
go into a special folder and sit there where he could take a look at them when he feels like it.
What about an advanced button, advanced settings button?
Yeah,
if
that's
you
not
look
rocket
at
science.
Gmail and what options are, it's nothing in terms of complexity compared to Google Plus and its options.
Amen
It's
to
a
that.
totally, you know,
But I
no
mean, all
Amen
Dan
to that.
needs is some filters, right? All he needs is some filters.
No,
90% of the
Craig,
people.
Craig.
And Gmail took off
Pretend your
because it
mom
was
is
simple.
using it, okay? It's too complicated.
Yeah, but
and adding
filters
all
aren't complicated. We've been
makes it
using
more-
filters in Gmail for a long time. They're not complicated.
And 90% of the people
Craig,
don't use filters.
Well,
Exactly.
90% of the
Problem
problem,
more than that.
people don't have Dan's problem.
Craig,
Yes, we do.
you don't interrupt me because I don't interrupt you, okay? Thanks.
Go, Pam.
Now,
Go ahead, Pam.
the average user just doesn't have the ability to navigate all these options. Google is making it too difficult for the average user. Craig, you are
I don't
not
disagree
the average
with you.
user.
I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying that they need this for the average user. I'm saying they need it for somebody like Dan.
No, but
It's not
there's
the
not,
average
this is the bottom line. Sorry about my phone. It's not. There is no such thing as the average user. There are users of different levels of understanding and knowledge and experience, and then each one requires their own set of rules and regulations to match their needs. And everybody is different. That's why it's almost impossible to come up with an ideal thing that will be used by hundreds of millions of people and everybody be happy. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Okay, let's.
So what do they do? Just do nothing?
They're trying to do a lot of stuff. Problem is, some people appreciate it, and some people bitch and moan because there's nothing they can do to make them happy. I mean,
we
they're
do
trying.
both.
It's not like they haven't been doing anything. They've certainly been doing a lot of different things. They're trying to roll out different options. If anybody listens to the users, I would say it's Google. I mean, if you compare big companies like, any of the big companies, nobody listens and talks to their users like Google. So you can't say they haven't been trying or they're not trying. They're certainly trying. The problem is, like I said, you have people like Michael Banks, okay? You sit down, talk to the guy, and he will be able to answer just about any question, IT related. So that's one type of user. Then you got Pam, no disrespect intended, I like Pam a lot. I want to put that on the record, who says in Gmail, she uses delete and inbox, and that's all she needs, and that's good enough for her. Are there more options in Gmail than just inbox and trash? Of course they are, but for her, that's good enough. So if they get rid of all the labs, they get rid of all the filters, they get rid of everything, Pam will still be happy. But not me, not Dan most likely, and not Michael. It's just the way it is.
Okay, let's go. We have two celebrities of the day. We have Anthony, who made it to the What's Hot list today. Is that the first time for you, Anthony?
It is the first time for me.
That's awesome. Well deserved. That was great. It was for your post about the beautiful Note 2, which I happen to have handy.
Actually, it was about the Galaxy S4.
Oh, the S4. Okay, sorry. Okay,
Close
so it's
enough.
not as good as the Note 2, but it's close. No, it
Same
was an epic video. So I recommend you go to Anthony's page and check that out. But also, another celebrity of the day, Mr. Ronnie Benser, who is providing tech support services to the Next Web. That was great to see. Always good to see a panelist in a major website newsy type thing. So
Most excellent.
for at least for good reasons to see them in the news. So Ronnie, let's go to you on this because I know you posted about it. And you're big into pages. What's your take? And then why don't you transition us from the ability for pages to communicate and transition us after your thoughts on that into the upcoming analytics and why that's important and what exactly they're going to be doing, do you think?
Okay. I'm sorry I joined late, so I don't know if the discussion that I just came on the tail end of was related to this or not. Was it?
We had started. We're at the end, and then we were just moaning and groaning, which we do at the end of each topic. So now we're going to transition it back to the glass is half full.
Okay.
But what do you think? What's your take on pages being able to communicate out in the open? Is it going to be abused? And what are your thoughts on that? And then about analytics.
There's probably no need to summarize what the thing does, right? Because you guys already talked about all that. Okay, so cool. So I think it's a phenomenal thing. Okay, and here's the reason why. As a person that tries to use Google Plus responsibly, I think giving us the ability to do that is a bonus. So if I am a person that runs a business and that business is not big and famous and people know how to find me because it's already famous, this allows me as a business to add to the community in a responsible way. And so the ability for a page to properly interact with, thank you, the ability for a page to properly interact with people, I think is of value to the community. And I believe that a person can block an inappropriate page just as easily as they can block an inappropriate person that is communicating with them in a way they do not want to be communicated with.
But Ronnie, that same person can go and create another page, and I don't know who that person is because the page doesn't tell me.
Right,
And then they can do it again, and then I have to block them again.
And Pam, that same person can go and turn into another person just as easily as they can become another
That's
page.
true. You're absolutely right.
And so as a result, the bottom line is, if people are inappropriate, you mute them or you block them and you
Pages
move
are
on.
people.
And pages are now equally stated as a person. Now, in other words,
hang on. I want to skip back a second. It's actually easier though to create a new page than it is to create a new person.
you know, I bet you, Alan, behind the scenes there's probably a little bit, you know, like what they do now for blocking people that try to start a whole new profile just to get into a Hangout to be a jerk. You know how they can try to track that now, and they make that a little harder to do? I'm going to bet you there's some kind of activity that's allowing people behind the scenes to watch when a person has a page is being a jerk and they get blocked and they start a whole nother one. I bet you pretty soon they're not going to be able to keep doing that.
I hope so, Ronnie, because like I tell you, I have seen so many of these reshare pages.
Okay, but wait. This whole thing, when I came in, was a massive argument, okay, and I was ready to just leave, okay? I want to bring in the perspective that there is value here. If you guys already talked about it and you want to discuss and argue about how nasty business is, I think you might forget the fact that Google is a business, and you're using their tool.
Ronnie,
yes?
about at least half the panel agrees with your position. So,
well,
so you're on safe ground.
I've been defending the idea because I've wanted as a business, a small business, to be able to communicate. And what's happened is it's forced those small businesses into leaving, finding no value here in Google Plus at all, or
I agree with you.
Okay.
You see, on my lower third, I've been running a couple pages for a long time, and it's very difficult. You know, like pages have been hampered for a really long time.
So I think it's a great thing they've added to pages. Now, will there be abuse? Sure, because people are stupid. Some people are stupid, and people are behind businesses, and so the stupidity will run over to the page.
So do you think they waited too long?
Definitely. I thought from the very beginning pages should have been able to interact just as much as a profile, as a person.
They're still not done. I mean, if the pages is not. I mean, for a second, I wouldn't say. I mean, I totally agree with everything that Ronnie said. One of the big omissions right now with pages that would make them much better in usage is the ability to post directly from a page. I mean, as a page. Right now, it's a convoluted process. They put it on mobile, which is totally ass backwards the way it's implemented on mobile. It's unusable the way they implement it on mobile, even though you can do it now. But you know, you have a simple thing like
it's totally usable on mobile as long as you ignore the fact that they're telling you to log out.
Well, that's why it's unusable, because I'm not doing that.
If they change the label from log out to switch to a page, it would be the exact same function, and you would be a lot happier with it.
No, what they should do is they should have a pull down, like they do at the top of the screen, on mobile and non-mobile, where when you create a post, you have a little pull down, allows you to select you're posting as any of your pages or yourself. That's all they need to do. Nothing
I think that's
the
wrong approach. The reason why I think that's the wrong approach. I'm sorry, Ronnie, go ahead. I see you want to say something. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I was just going to go to what Dan asked me to do. In other words, transition to another topic.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Before I were to get into that topic, there's one more piece that I believe is coming soon, and that is an area of my interest, which is YouTube. And the ability for a page to have its own YouTube channel is something that we've been promised.
Yeah.
And that should be coming soon, and that, along with this new capability for pages to be able to interact, I believe is going to bring much more value back to the page, where in my mind the page was waning in value and in my mind was pretty much almost useless.
I think there are still some things that they still need to bring to that, though, before that actually truly gets there. The first is not only being able to host a Hangout, from a page, but actually have it go to that page's YouTube profile.
Right, that's what I was just saying.
Well,
or trying to say.
That's kind of saying.
I'm pointing out that when a page can have its own YouTube channel, then that page can host its own Hangout on Air, and the video will go to the branded YouTube channel that's related to the page.
I think that's incredibly optimistic of you that they'd actually do that.
That's an important thing, though, because
That's
I've
what
seen
they've
like
said they're gonna
Reuters.
do.
I've seen
That's what
Reuters doing a
hang on a
hangout,
sec-
and it's
hang
on
on a second.
one of the reporters' personal page profiles instead of
Ronnie,
the Reuters channel.
Hang on a second. I want to get something out of Ronnie on that. Ronnie, you say that's what it's supposed to do, but that's not what I keep hearing them saying. I keep hearing them saying, yes, you're going to have your YouTube channel tied to your Google Plus profile, but I've never seen them say straight out that if the page hosts a Hangout on Air, that it will show up on that YouTube profile. I've never seen them say that.
But a business would
They have stated that, basically. Dave, Ben, is it not Ben? No, sorry, he's a Hangout guy. Another guy, the engineer, I gave you guys the link to that video where he's talking about David Boyle from YouTube. He talks about the idea that a page can have, in the future, its own YouTube channel.
Yes.
And that the videos connected to that logically, right? Is there any disconnect with why they would do that and not allow it to do a Hangout on Air?
Well, the only disconnect might be that they're not technically able to do so.
I think you're both on the right track, but I think the way they're going to implement this is not by users, having a Hangout, a drop-down bar or something. I think they want companies, brands, and businesses to have a Google Apps account that now can pipe in a YouTube account, that now can pipe in a Pages account, all through the Apps account. And that way it's not managed by one person. That way it's on, because I see Google, Teams and stuff doing this coming from the actual Apps account to make a Hangout.
Well, they never mention anything about apps, but,
This is my vision where I see it going, where it makes more sense. That way is more scalable.
All right, well,
it's also revenue. It's also revenue generating, as opposed to the money-sucking hole that it is now.
That's why Google seems to not care about revenue for some reason.
Ronnie, real quick question on the YouTube channel. Is it your vision that for example, my main YouTube account, I could just create another channel under that account and then ultimately tie one of the pages that I've created to that channel if I choose to?
Methodology of how they're going to do this is still a mystery to me.
Okay.
It appears that if you have a branded named page, you should have the same branded name YouTube channel. That just makes logical sense. And so I'm hoping that the logic will flow through to the point where when the branded page does a Hangout on Air, it goes to the equally branded YouTube channel automatically. Right now, that's logically what everyone expects, but it's not very easy to do. In fact, it's impossible.
Let me clarify, Ron. I agree with you that that's good and right, and I think all of us are hopeful that that's what they'll do.
Okay. You just don't think they're going to do it?
Just every time that it seems like they've done something and ahead of time we've thought of what was going to be good and logical, they've done something completely different. So I'm approaching this with cautious pessimism.
Here's what they've cautious pessimism. All right, I'm going to take the glass half full side. So here's what they have stated is that when this connection is coming about, the page, which has the ability to have up to 50 different managers, this is going to bring Michael Banks back in. You have multiple people managing the page. Also, we'll be able to manage the YouTube account, which is something that us YouTuber people have been asking for multiple years. And so it brings in this wonderful package, and I'm just completing it with a bow on the top by saying it's going to let me do Hangouts straight from my page to my branded channel because that's what I want. But honestly, are they saying that literally? No. I haven't seen them say that literally. It just seems logical that it would work.
And if a business came onto it today, I would recommend Google Apps everywhere. Because that's the best way for that to work.
But Michael, I think the issue is that Google Apps isn't even enough. If you get even a moderate-sized company running in apps, there are some people who you may want to manage the page and some people that you don't. So I think having specific managers is a better
You can
approach.
manage that through Google Apps, can't you? they have those controls. I know
Yes,
it's not
but
fully in there now, but I mean they have those ability to choose only people.
Yes, but it's not a complete function.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is currently apps are going to cost you and pages don't. And pages don't cost you because pages are also tied to local.
Yep.
And they don't charge you for local because they want you to have a local listing because that drives traffic to their other services.
Well, they've already started, Alan. They've already started providing some enhanced features for paid apps accounts, like the ability to have your own mini Google Plus private network.
15.
That sort of thing. I think we're going to see more of that.
And I think we're going to see more of that. Anyway, let's Ronnie, the next topic.
The next topic, I believe, was the fact, or the mentioning by Google that they are planning on rolling out coming soon, whatever that means, right? The ability to have analytics that ties to your page. So your page's activity will be able to be measurable and quantifiable, which is something very important to business people. In other words, why am I spending money supporting activity on Google Plus if I can't measure to see whether it's useful or not for my business?
And that I think is actually heavily tied in with the fact that AdWords can now direct to a page, which we learned about 2 weeks ago, last week, something like that.
That was last week, sort of, when it came out with the not an ad thing.
Right.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool for those that are using social media to find a way to get their business to be visible. And I think that's the future of how business is done. That's it.
That's it? Okay.
Wow, that was fast. Craig,
did you want us to disagree with you?
No, we're good. We're good. Craig,
I mean,
Craig,
if
did
you
you want to
need
weigh in briefly on analytics? Because I know you're into that.
Well, no, Ronnie's correct. I mean, they need to really, if they want these pages to be successful, they need to be serious about the pages having all the capabilities of individual accounts and then some, and analytics and any bells and whistles that they can give these business owners to attract them to use them. Like I say, I created several pages, and first of all, I couldn't do a custom URL. All right. There were a bunch of other issues right out of the gate, and so I just abandoned them. I mean, they're just sitting there. I don't even use them. When I post to my personal profile, I should be able to also check a box and send it to one of my pages. I mean, I do that with my Twitter program, TweetDeck, whatever it is that I use. I send it to 4 or 5 different Twitter accounts. Now, I don't abuse that. I don't always do it, but there are some things, content that I generate or whatever, that I might want to send to a couple of feeds simultaneously. These services should be there. I mean, if they want people to use this stuff.
I think that the latest thing where a page can actually interact with people now, like here's the scenario that I was running into that made me abandon my page. I'm a video SEO guy. I also focus a lot on helping people with Hangouts. Now, Hangouts make a video, and the video needs to be optimized properly if you really want it to do something for you. So that was my sweet spot. I had a business called Video Leads Online. It was a page, but that page couldn't get enough people to come into it to give it any value in my mind. I would look in the stream out there, people asking what I would consider to be relatively basic questions about video SEO. I could answer them for them and give them value. And I wanted to do that as a page to say, here's my business, here's a freebie. If this sounds good to you, then check me out. Maybe I can do some work for you as a consultant. I couldn't do that. Now I can. And so that gives the value to a small business page that was missing all along.
Yeah, you could look for people who ask a question about YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
How can I get more YouTube traffic? How can I get how do I better utilize tags for my videos? And you can weigh in on that post. Hey, check this resource out, whatever, and then get circled and build up.
But do it in a non-spammy way. I mean, people that are involved with social media can recognize really quickly whether something's spammy or not.
Yeah, I don't understand this spammy thing. I really don't understand it, because that is the one thing that Google should be serious about. And Monica and I talked about this with Hangouts, with people coming into Hangouts and doing inappropriate things. It should not be rocket science that if Monica blocks somebody and then somebody else in the same Hangout blocks somebody, and then they go into another Hangout, totally, a whole different Hangout, and they get blocked, the same night by two different people. Google should be able to channel that pretty easily and say, hey, this guy's a bad guy, and just block him out of the whole damn system.
It's really great to see you.
Dictator.
Are you saying they're not doing that? Because that's exactly what they said they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, and then the spam should not be a problem then. We shouldn't.
Craig, here's the problem. Here's the problem. It is incredibly easy to create another account.
Well, that shouldn't be the case.
So we should make it more difficult for you to create an account when it's already difficult for you.
I don't know if that's possible, Alan.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Google is faced with two competing things. They want to make it as easy as possible for the good guys to create an account and get in and participate, and as difficult as possible for the bad guys to get in to create an account and get in and participate.
Well, there is precedent.
And there is no white
There is-
hat, black hat
there
detection
is-
feature.
No, there is precedent for this. For example, Facebook. If I create a page in Facebook and then I want to get a custom URL to go along with that, let's say I want facebook.com/Frederick News, I have to give them a cell phone, and they're going to text to me a code, and I'm going to put it in. Now, how many cell phones is this spammer going to have? Okay, so there are ways. Don't tell me that
There are
aren't
ways, and the cell phone system is one that they use. The problem is that also prevents people who don't have cell phones. And it may surprise you that not everybody has a cell phone.
Well, then you don't allow that person to create a whole bunch of pages, right?
Well, now you're saying you may not even allow that person to create one page or one account. That's where it goes back to, how do you make it easy for the good guys and harder, difficult for the bad guys? And I tell you something else, Craig. It is easy to get another cell phone. It's trivial.
Google Voice.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. They can.
No,
only
it
get
is
so many.
trivial,
It costs them
Craig.
money. It costs them money every time they do it.
It costs you $1. That's how much it costs to get a new SIM card. $1. Less in some cases. It's cheap, it's easy, it's trivial.
Well, I don't know. There has to be ways that they can do it. I mean,
There are ways, and they're
Facebook
trying. The
does.
problem is every time they put one of these things in place, it makes it more difficult for the regular, everyday users who just want to use the freaking system.
So what you're
And
saying
we're making
is
it hard enough on them.
we have to modify what Shakespeare said and add on to lawyers and say kill all the spammers.
You know, it's kind of funny because this coming from Craig Shipp, who constantly is complaining about
He's constantly being
spam
barred from
controls
Facebook.
that Facebook puts at him. So
Well,
we
no,
love
I'm just
Craig,
saying Facebook does have some things that seem to work, and I don't get a whole bunch of spam on there. I mean, so there has to be ways to do it, to control it.
And,
I'm not
and
an
Google's
expert
been
on
doing
this.
the cell phone thing for longer than Facebook has. They do it across all of their services. It's a built-in service. It's part of Google itself.
Okay,
And
I
it's
got.
fine. It works adequate, but there are issues. And if you ignore the issues and just say, "Oh, it's trivial," then you're ignoring all of the other issues. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. I got a question for you guys. It's similar. On the communities, we're talking about pages and how some of us activated a page. And hey, Gary, do me a favor. Let me go ahead and mute your mic, Gary, because we keep popping back.
Sure.
We're getting some audio as you get settled in there. I want to talk about communities. A lot of us set up a community when it first started, and we may or may not be using it. Just like with pages, it's been a couple weeks since I did community, so I just wanted to get some quick feedback here. One of the things I didn't understand when they first started it, and then I quickly realized, was they don't want you to share a post in your mainstream with the community. They want you to post exclusively to that community, which will only show up to folks. I'm not sure. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But in general, if you have something really interesting, you have to choose, do I share it publicly and all of us here have, hundreds of thousands of followers. Do I share it publicly with that larger audience, or do I use it in this community instead?
Not all of us are on the suggested user list.
Actually, I'm not anymore. I'm not as of yesterday. A bunch of us got a month of glory, so it was great, and I'm flattered. But they switch people in and out.
You can cheat. You can do something in between the two as well. But your main point is
you
well
can share it. But what I'm curious, Ronnie, what do you think about this? About this whole thing? I started them, and I was like, if I have a juicy post, I want to share it with my regular audience.
Right, and here's what I do just as a tactic. If I think it's a juicy post and I want to share it with my regular larger audience, I'll share it publicly and ask someone in that community to reshare my post into the community to bring it in that way.
That's kind of
which again is a hokey workaround, which again means it's neutered, and we're back to the same old problem where I've abandoned the communities that I started for this reason, and I'm sure a lot of people have abandoned their communities.
But there's also this mindset, because right now communities are still new enough for us that those of us that have been using Google Plus without the community component, we're trying to figure out, how do we do this? In other words, what's the new way to post when there's something really juicy? Does it go to the community, which is smaller and focused and interested in it, or does it go to build my reputation out there in the big world?
Okay, let me ask Pam on this. If Pam, and this is going to be funny, but let's say you had a really good thong picture, right? And it's Thursday. It's 8 a.m. Thursday, peak time. That's what Vic said, right? 8 a.m. Yeah. But he never said Eastern or Pacific, so I'm guessing Pacific. So 11 a.m. Eastern. And you had this epic thong pic, right? You have a thong community, right?
Yes.
And you have your mainstream. I use the term loosely.
Yes.
Just kidding. And you would be torn, wouldn't you?
No, I'd share it both. Because the thong picture is on my desktop, I can share the picture in both. I just share it twice. Share it in the community, then go to public, share public. It's no big deal.
There's nothing wrong with sharing it twice. It just shows up in your profile twice if someone happens to go look at your profile. That's all.
Yeah.
So
and that's their problem,
if anyone
not
who's
mine.
in your community, your thong community, I'm scared to ask, how many people are in your thong community?
Just about 100.
Okay. And we'll all be stalking later.
Technically,
No, I'm just saying, but that is a thing, Craig. It's a thing. A lot, like I was like torn, like what? And so it was like seemed. Should we? Okay, real quick. I'm going to start with Sheila, and I'm going to go to Alan, and then we'll move to this Fraser topic. My question is this: should you be able to share a post publicly to your regular stream, and at the same time include a community, just like you would a circle, or not? Because right now you can't do that. So let me ask Sheila first. What do you think? Should you be able to share public and to a community?
Yes, I think you should be able to do that. You know, I don't like the limitations of just sharing it. Oh, you have to share it with the public or one or the other. You should be able to do both.
Okay, Ronnie, what do you think?
I agree.
Okay, so we don't have to use your famous tactics, for which Ronnie charges a premium.
No, if they allow us to do it, I would be doing that, right? But I'm just trying to find, like Greg is saying, I'm finding workarounds.
Yeah, because if you spend time doing a great epic post, you don't want to. I'm trying to avoid using the term waste it, but really, if it's a community with a dozen people, you're just starting out versus your thousands of followers.
Right.
It is sort of, you know.
You don't want to hide it in the community. You want it to have a chance to grow so that everyone else can benefit from it.
So then you make a post in the Google Plus community or Google Plus help, and you let them know your discomfort or your unhappiness that it's broke.
No, you don't do that. No,
yes,
Sheila.
you do.
No, Sheila, you don't.
Remember, she's armed now.
No, you don't. What you do is you send feedback.
Oh, stop.
Well, you send feedback.
The reason why you don't send it to the community is because there are already 90 other posts saying the exact same thing there. Send feedback. That's how they know.
You know
That's
what?
where they get the metrics from.
Feedback for me is kind of like broke. You know, it's like when you're on a page, your own
Are you on a list, Sheila?
You can't. Some things you cannot send feedback on because it's like, where's the feedback button when you really need it?
It doesn't matter.
Sheila,
then go somewhere else and send the feedback.
Sheila, did they stop you from sending feedback?
Well, like there are some spots, you know, it's like when you want to send a feedback, you don't want to send, you know, like the screenshot. It's like some things. How are you going to send screenshots in some things?
Then block it all. The screenshot isn't the important part. The important part is that you send the message to them through the send feedback system. That's what's important because that's where They get all that. That's how they gather their metrics. That's how they send it out to the correct people and make sure the correct teams see it.
Well,
Stuff goes to the Google Plus community is like talking to a room full of other people who are agreeing with you, and none of whom are listening.
Unlike Google Plus Week. Pam,
Yeah,
should you be able to share publicly a great thong pic and to the community, or should you know?
Yeah. Yep. And I do have other communities.
Oh God.
Yes. That's just
I
the
can
one
imagine. Yeah.
She's got her safe for work thongs,
glad-
and then she's got her
Save
non-safe
that for
work
11
thongs.
p.m.
Yeah, I'm glad Ron Jeremy could make it. Dan, I'll show
That's
you
the
my other
other
communities
community.
later. Michael, should you be able to share publicly and to a community, or do you like the idea now that you kind of have to exclusively share it to try to build the communities up? What do you think?
You should be able to, but I see why you can't.
Monica, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I see both sides of it. I don't know.
Wouldn't it be just one? It doesn't have to be one or the other. If you have the option to add the community to a public post, then you're good. And if you don't want to send it to the community and the public, you don't. You're done.
Yeah, that's true.
The only issue I see.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for.
Just
Yeah.
an option. Yeah, I think Monica's filling in for Anthony tonight. I don't know.
Yeah, I do not feel passionately about this topic, but there are others I do.
And Craig Shipp, you obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely, because one of the enemies of any database system is dual entries, redundant entries. So you don't want to be posting it to your community and then posting the same thing to your public feed on your other. The database doesn't like that. It's not good. It's not efficient. It's just not the way it should be done.
It's terrible for SEO.
So you should be able to, just like we've talked about how, comments should also follow along with the post, heaven forbid. But yes, the answer is yes. We should be able to do it.
It's probably problematic because of SEO. In other words, you're going to get double the value for it if you share it publicly and within the private or within a community. And that's probably part of the reason why there's a problem with it.
Google doesn't like that. I don't know how they do it. Like, I guess they deal with backlinks or whatever. But in the same way, like Ronnie with Google News, if you typed in a search term, if 50,000 different outlets have the same AP or Reuters story, you don't want to see duplicate, entries of that. So they kind of pick the most linked to one first or whatever. Anthony, what do you think? Should you be able to share publicly and to a community?
Well, first of all, I'm a terrible person to ask because I just don't use communities. However, I think that Google's position is probably going to be that they don't want people cross-posting because, first of all, they don't want people cross-posting from Facebook or whatever into Google+. So why would they want them cross-posting from specific profiles into other communities? I think that Google's point of view is probably that they want original content, and that doesn't matter if the original content is inside two parts of the social network, or if it's coming from a different social network. They want the content to be catered for the specific audience. If I'm posting something to my stream, I probably have one basic demographic of people that are following me, and then if I post to a community, these communities are very specific, so they almost certainly are going to have an entirely different demographic. So even if you just change the way that you say the same thing, you probably don't want to be cross-posting, or at least that's probably the viewpoint of Google at large. And I can definitely see that point of view. Is there some things that would make sense to cross-post, exactly the same from one place to another? Yeah, sure. But I think mostly that, especially going back to the demographics of communities, are very specific, whereas the demographic of a person's personal stream is usually going to be relatively over broad, right?
Could you say demographics just
Keanu.
one more time?
No.
Anthony, what would you do if you stumbled into a bar and it was an after-party meeting of the thong community?
I'd probably walk out.
You'd be carried out. Oh, man. Okay. All right. Alan is going to finish our thoughts on this. Comments and then your thoughts, and then we'll move to Fraser's thing.
The first is this is a very good point from Gerwin. He points out that what we've been talking about really is kind of specific for public communities, and he's right. We do have this issue that we've got private communities, we've got private posts, we've got sharing to circles, we've got a lot of other dynamics to this, and I think the complexity behind it is part of the reason why Google didn't do this sort of thing from the beginning. We also have this comment from David, it's an interesting angle on it. He wonders if you could use the community to share a post to see what kind of feedback you get before deciding on sharing it with the general public. Perhaps this depends on the post. I think that's interesting. I think in a lot of ways, though, I tend to think of the advantages for being able to do the sort of cross-posting as outweighing the disadvantages. And I see a lot of disadvantages to it. I think part of the advantages, though, is how people tend to do things. So, for example, I may join a technical community, and I may join it to listen to to participate in some of the discussions. But in some cases, I will be more interested and the posts from certain people may carry more significance to me. So I may want to follow them separately. If we look at something like photography, there are some great photography communities out there. But I don't want to see tons and tons of pictures in my stream. I want to see several good pictures from specific people. So I may want to follow those people instead of those communities. And if those people don't post their pictures, both publicly and to the community, I'm missing out and I'm losing out. And I think that's the problem. And that's why I think there should be this cross-posting that's allowed and encouraged.
Alan, let me just give you one real specific example and get your feedback on this, okay? Sure. I do the show Frederick Week once a week. I did it this morning, all right? So I have to do it on my main profile right now because I can't do a hangout from a community, correct?
Sure you can.
I can originate a hangout from a community?
If you go into a community and you click Start Hangout.
No, not a hangout.
No, not on air. Okay.
Okay, it's a show. It's a hangout on air. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So again, I have to do it from my main profile. Okay. So I do the show, and then I want to share it with my circles. I want to share it with some of the people that were in the show. I want to share it to the community. I want to share it to a page, right?
Can you imagine some non-technical person trying to figure this stuff out?
Why not be able to do that? I mean,
okay, so we're all in agreement.
That's why we don't get any new people joining Hangout and starting shows. It's because it's so damn complicated.
There's like 20 people who do all this stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to do hangouts within my community, and I would like to be able to name the hangout within the community, not just start one and you can't do anything about it.
Okay.
And there's no tutorial. I pointed this out to Moritz
because it'd be
this
like
week,
that poor Guy Kawasaki's book. As soon as they produce the tutorial, the next day it's obsolete, right?
I think this is a case where we actually are all in agreement.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, we are.
Moritz said at one point there was an idea for a Hangout tutorial, and I said, "What happened?" And he said, "I don't know. I guess we forgot to make it." He could not remember why it was never made. And I said, get on that, man. Make it happen.
There's a bunch of them out there. There's a bunch of us that make training
Live the dream.
But they're not labeled with Google's name on it. So
Ronnie, you're the king of that. They could add a period
to
something.
Ronnie.
You could come up with a 5-slide show with arrows.
Hang on. Here's a problem, though.
Good trainer.
If Google did do it, nobody would watch it. And you know how I know nobody would watch it? Because nobody reads the freaking help pages that Google makes.
Don't you wish they would take whoever's making these epic TV commercials, like with the little kid who has to be Martin Van Buren, and put them in touch with the user manual?
Yeah. have them do the
That's a great ad.
tutorial.
I love
Make
that
it
ad.
simple. Make it mandatory.
So moving on,
Please.
and this is
We're all in
this is
agreement there as well.
Moving on, and this is related to our last subject, so we're not going to cover it in too much detail. But there is actually somebody out there who disagrees with all of us, and that is Fraser Cain, who has been on the show a number of times. He runs an incredibly popular community. He is an incredibly well-known personality among Google Plus to begin with. He has posted a 30-day communities challenge, where he's basically challenged people to, instead of posting publicly from your profile, post it to a community instead. Let's build. His argument is, let's build up these communities.
Sure. Let me give you a reason
We
why
can't even
that
build
works.
up Google Plus.
Let me give you a reason why that works for Fraser. Fraser has probably multiple thousands of people in the community, so he feels it's worthwhile to do that. Whereas a lot of us have maybe a couple hundred or less in the community, and we're wondering if it's worthwhile to do that.
Well, here's the other reason why Fraser wants to do it, and I think he explained this when he was on the show last. Fraser has become known as the space guy. If he posts anything in his profile, in his public stream, that doesn't have to do with space, he gets a ton of messages criticizing him.
Sure.
So he's basically the one-man community, and he's tired of that job.
That's funny, because that's like Mario Batali on Twitter. If he posts anything political, he gets criticized by his food followers, right? He's one of the Iron Chef guys. And he has the same problem. It's Twitter. They associate him with the Food Network, the guy with the orange Crocs, and God forbid he should weigh in, on the fiscal cliff or something, and they all freak out, and then he gets hate mail and he tweets back, hey, it's my Twitter stream, I'll do what I want.
Yeah, ultimately the problem is that they didn't have communities from the get-go, and so as a result, we're dealing with transitionary issues, right? We're trying to figure out how do we do what we used to do and do communities simultaneously, and that's where the struggle is.
Right, and that's why he's trying to say, look, guys, he's trying to push the issue. And, I disagree with him, but I see his point.
One point, though, if I started a community, tech community, right? Technical news or whatever. If I posted publicly and posted to the community, why would anyone join the community and see stuff twice?
Right.
So I see their point, right? Their point is not lost on me. I'm just saying it was frustrating. Ronnie, go ahead.
In your community where your second post of that went, there's likely going to be more relevant discussion taking place inside that community, because in theory you've gathered people that are interested in that into that community, than would happen maybe on the outside.
Then why post on the outside at all?
Because you are used to posting on the outside.
Okay, so there's no good reason for you to post on the outside.
No, because there's other people on the outside that are also going to see it.
And they're not in the community yet, and if you use that as a draw to bring them into the community, eventually, this is my prediction, as I said a couple of weeks ago, that the posts in the public will diminish when you have a good enough following in your private community or in your community, and the people that are in that community will draw more into there, and then there'll be a new cycle of people that are posting public again, and then they'll build up their own communities, and then they'll go into these little places, and it'll just keep repeating itself.
I still think the real valuable thing, and then Gary, the real valuable thing in my mind for communities where they're really useful is going to be in private niche communities, cancer survivors, sexual orientation or whatever you don't want public, Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that. Whatever you don't want public, if you want a private community, and you don't have any moderation you have to worry about because you're deciding who gets in, right? I think it's extremely valuable for that kind of thing. Gary, Alan?
Or it can be used in a club setting like a ham radio club. I set up a community for ham radio operators. And it's private. It's just for people I want to have in there. It's not really open to all the circle. And you can build it slowly. You can direct people in there. But I think, how long have communities been out? 2 weeks? I think it's much too early to judge this new format. 4 weeks, I'm sorry. 4 weeks. Okay, that's a long time in the life of Google+.
Dan, do you have a community for this show? Did you create one for the show?
No, Craig, we don't. And here's why. We asked 4 weeks ago when community started rolling out, we asked all of you, what do you guys think? What would you get out of a community? What would you do with a community? What would you put into a community? And the amount of feedback we got was staggeringly low. In fact, we got nobody saying anything.
Well, because a lot of people don't, they miss a lot of posts. So
yeah, my webcam was broken, so.
This is
Well,
our
I'm back.
show.
Let me give a positive half full glass thing for the future for communities. I think when they first came out, everybody that's posting about their normal topics started posting again inside communities, the same topic, okay? And then there's this glut of duplicate information. Perhaps in the future, the near future, we're going to start saying, well, you know what? I love tangerine oil. And so I'm going to start a community that loves tangerine oil. And I don't post about that publicly, but it's one of my secret passions. And I'm going to bring that into a community and grow there and leave my Hangout posts and my video SEO posts out there in the public and enjoy my tangerine oil community later.
Ronnie, I can't let this go. Explain that it's one of your passions, tangerine oil? Do we need
It's
to
an
warn
essential
people to
oil,
take their
Dan.
children out of the room?
No, it's an essential oil.
It's an
Dan.
Don't let
essential
him-
You're talking to Ronnie,
it's
not
nothing-
Pam.
Oh my
it's
God.
nothing.
What
It's
the hell do
nothing
you do with
pornographic.
tangerine oil? Maybe it's too much information.
This is cool stuff. It's tangerine
Yes.
oil.
What do you do with it?
It is.
You stick it on. I stick it right near my nose, so it just sort of gives me a aromatic lips. I like it.
Is it like Snapchat? All the kids are doing it now?
You get hot for tangerine oil?
It's not illegal.
Some
Anyway,
of this stuff is very medicinal,
yes.
and
So-
it has some medicinal applications.
It
I
smells
suppose.
good,
It
Dan.
smells good. Yeah.
That's coming from a board-certified ophthalmologist. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary knows.
Bottom line is, I think there's probably going to be value to communities. They might be private, they might be public. That's going to start emerging after this initial bump into everybody trying to figure out what they are and how to do them. Now they're going to start being used in a more efficient fashion, I hope, or I expect that.
I think they're better for small niche communities because you're more likely to turn. For example, I'm in a broadcasters community with a bunch of like television broadcasters and stuff, right? So, and I'm in a couple private communities, and in some of them I will turn notifications on because it's a select group. I'm interested in everything anybody in there says. If it were big, like the Google Plus Discuss, there's no way in hell I'd put notifications on for that, right? Because
Well,
it's
they
too
don't let
much.
you.
There's too much crap that they have to moderate out because it's too big.
Once you get 1,000 people, I don't think the notifications work any longer.
But that's way too many. But if
Yeah.
it's like 16 people or 30, but about a niche group, like Gary's talking about amateur radio, and if he's carefully cultivated that group of people, then I totally imagine he has notifications on because he wants to know about everything that's posted in there because it's all interesting to him. There's no crazy spam stuff. So I think communities have their place. I think they're very valuable. I still think the strength there is in niche, especially private communities with a select cultivated group. Because if it's select, admission only, by choice, by your decision, then you're not going to have any spam to worry about or moderation to worry about. If it's a public community, then you get all kinds of junk. Alan, are we ready to move? Any final thoughts on that?
We had quite a number of comments. I just wanted to share this quick one. The community for me is mostly to allow members to post their stuff without tagging the page. If it's a quality post and not a duplicate, I'll share it to the page myself. So I think there are a lot of different strategies to using communities. I think they're all good ones. We're going to see how all of them play out, and I think with that we can move on.
Okay, so next we have. I'm not sure. I didn't see this was added late. Google Health is being.
This is just a quick reminder that a feature that they discontinued back in 2011, Google Health,
long time ago,
is being permanently terminated in just a couple of days. So this is your final warning.
On January, yeah. If you have any data, but it's important, like if you did use the service, which I did, if you uploaded your health data, which could be really critical, like if you put your health records up on Google Health, they're going to be permanently gone. And if you did use the service, they should be emailing you, but sometimes you may not check your Gmail.
Can you explain exactly for folks who don't know? I remember when they announced it, it was a big deal, revolution stuff, and I don't know how much use they got, how practical it was. I'd love to get, if you could explain that, and then of course we'd obviously want Gary's opinion as a medical doctor on this whole thing.
Right. Well, basically, Google Health was kind of a project that never really, took off the way they wanted. and it was kind of it was an early attempt to put your like your health and electronic records online. And I started using it because I thought it was a cool idea. But now, like, basically they want you to get your data off the service, and if you haven't done so, it's going to be gone. But like in 4 days. So get your data now.
Yeah, there has not been much traction on that at all. I think Microsoft's Health Vault has been kind of a failure as well. There's been a lot of problems in the industry with personal health records, getting people to really kind of use them.
Now you're a big advocate, Gary. You're a big advocate for online health records. If I follow your public stream correctly, is that correct?
I'm not a big advocate. I think they need to be used in the setting of a professional setting, like a doctor's office, for interrelating to a doctor's office, telemedicine, telehealth. PHRs out in the space patients don't seem to be gobbling them up because they have to take time to enter their data.
Or they don't. Presumably, they don't trust them either.
If the physician has his EMR and he can export some of it to the patients securely, then the patients are willing to get it. They'll sign into a portal and download their record.
Obviously, you'd want this stuff online eventually. Just, I mean, if you're in the emergency room, you don't want them having to wake up a doctor and try to get some form that's in a filing cabinet somewhere from the state you used to live in, right?
Well, see, that's happening. Actually, that's already happening with the electronic medical records. There's a new nationwide health information exchange network where all the electronic medical records are interoperable, and they sign into this exchange. It's going to be a nationwide network. They're being set
Should we
up
worry about
so,
hacking? I mean, they can hack into everything now.
Yeah, they can hack into anything. It's very secure, as secure as anything can be, but anything can be hacked.
That's scary, though, right?
Well,
I'm sure Paris Hilton's health records are worth money, right?
Yeah, there have been some breakthroughs. There had something happen at Cedars-Sinai at UCLA where some of these records were hacked into, and a couple 100,000 people's records were compromised. But I guess if it's on the internet, it's in the public space.
You see, as a consumer, I trust Google, a lot. I probably trust Google more than I should trust Google. But as a consumer that puts too much trust into Google, I would not trust Google or any other company for that matter, to have my, health records. But at the same time, I think that, hospitals and doctors should be able to get this information, off of the internet. So it's kind of a very tough situation for someone that takes their privacy extremely seriously.
The motivation for hackers to download the data so they can sell it. It's worth monetarily a lot if he sells all this data to somebody else to collate.
Well, hackers are not really the main concern. Really, the main concern is insurance companies, because as of now, they can still deny you based on pre-existing conditions. The full text of Obama's health care bill has not yet gone into effect. And so, yeah, you can be denied based on a pre-existing condition. So
that's not going to last too much longer. That's not going to last much more than another year at the most.
Yeah, 2014 will be when it's in full effect. So I would not put all that information up there.
Can I ask Gary a quick question? And I know you're not a big fan of the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, but Gary, I got to ask you this real quick question. On that pre-existing condition thing, the individual mandate, you couldn't have it otherwise, right? You can't. It'd be like car insurance. If you could call Allstate in the middle of an intersection after you just had an accident and call them and say, I've just had an accident. I need car insurance to pay for this, right? Because everyone would wait till you had a car accident.
Right.
So I don't see how you could have the pre-existing condition thing without having an individual mandate, right? They have to go hand in hand, or young people would never get health insurance, right? You just wait until you're sick.
I don't know that they're connected.
This topic is so extensive, I recommend we move on. Because
okay.
we could seriously go for an hour or more.
Monica and Gary duking it out.
Obamacare has a good chance of not being overthrown, but not being able. The mandate won't be able to be carried out for financial reasons. It's so Byzantine that it won't support itself.
I recommend we move on from this topic.
I do too. I want everybody to have.
This is a tech
I want
show.
everyone to have health insurance and be covered, but I don't want us to go off the cliff.
Okay.
So moving on.
All right, moving on.
Moving on to a related topic, shockingly enough, Facebook had a little bit of a privacy snafu.
Oh, this is epic.
Over Christmas. It's hilarious.
And
oh yeah.
And the people affected loudly and vigorously complained very publicly about the violation of their privacy. Now, we have to realize the people whose privacy was being violated here were the Zuckerbergs.
This is an epic.
Randy was upset. Epic.
Randy's privacy was violated. She complained loudly on
so
Twitter.
I don't know which one was the sister. Was it the girl on the left or the right? Which one was
the one on
the left?
Ahead. I don't think it was the left or the right. It was at the end of the table.
So Mark Zuckerberg's sister posts a picture to her friends on Facebook, and it is all of the family reacting to the new Poke app. And insert Pam joke here. I'm sure Pam will weigh in, but they're all reacting to the new Facebook Poke app, and they're these crazy expressions. I'm sure you've seen the picture. If you watch this show, I'm sure you've seen it. And she posted it, and then someone shared it to Twitter, and she saw it, and she complained publicly on Twitter. I don't appreciate you sending it or whatever. And she said, I didn't understand. It was at the top of my stream. I thought it was public because she's obviously a celebrity on Twitter. You know, Mark Zuckerberg's sister used to work at Facebook. And she said, no, I shared it to my friends. So, even Mark Zuckerberg's family who have worked there can't figure out the privacy settings. B, what she thought was private wasn't. It wasn't shared by one of her inner circle. It was a friend of a friend saw it, or a friend liked it, and then it said so-and-so. We've all seen this on Facebook where so-and-so liked this photo, but you can't really access it. You can just tell that they liked it or whatever. So it just a classic fail. And, anytime we can beat up on Mark Zuckerberg, we avail ourselves of the opportunity to.
And the final irony, of course, that this is Facebook, who does not value your privacy at all. Here's a member of the inner sanctum complaining about their privacy being violated. So
and talking about human decency.
Anybody
in the Zuckerberg family knows anything.
I couldn't think of a better payback.
Human
the
decency.
Ultimate payback.
Okay, that's just a fun story. That was epic. We had to get that in there. Facebook bashing.
I want to know why you need an app to poke.
Any possible way.
Some people do, Pam. This is a sad reality in the modern era.
Is this like Pokemon?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. Well, in Pam's case, maybe.
Or Pokewoman.
We got to check our rating on this show. What time is it?
I don't know. I can't imagine. I'm sure
we'll
get a couple comments. Okay. What's next, Alan? What do we got?
Next, we're moving back slightly into Google territory with an article that was titled "Google Muscles in on Microsoft's Turf," and this is an article posted by the Wall Street Journal. So that gives you an idea on just what kind of attention it's getting about how some of the Google apps, particularly things like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheet, and so forth, are beginning to gain traction among people who formerly would be going straight to Microsoft. And so this is one of Google's revenue streams, and it's a not trivial revenue stream at this point for Google, is now beginning to cut into Microsoft's not trivial revenue stream. In fact, Office used to be Microsoft's big moneymaker. And here's Google aiming at it directly. So
it still is, isn't it?
As far as I know, but I don't know. Actually, I believe Microsoft now is making more of their money from servers, from their SQL server, from their database type stuff, than they are from Office itself.
Yeah,
So
they're pushing Office over into the cloud.
Well, yeah, they're pushing it into the cloud because Google's doing that.
Exactly.
And they're both trying to make money off of it. And the question is, this is actually, again, this is one of the places where Google is trying to make some direct revenue. It's not like they have very many places where they're trying to make direct revenue. But this is one of them. And apparently they're succeeding enough that the Wall Street Journal is paying attention to it.
Do you think there's still advantages to. There's still things you can do in desktop.
Now, Dan,
Office software that you can't do in the cloud.
Let's come on. We know the word that you used 6 months ago when you talked about it was ghetto. You referred to Microsoft. You referred to Google's in the cloud apps as ghetto compared to desktop apps. And
in ways, but you know what? I'm using them more. There's a lot you can do. The base 90% of what you do in Office you can do in the cloud, but there are some things you can't. Yeah. Ghetto's too strong now. And they've gotten better, and they've added. They've gotten better, but there are still things you can do on the desktop you can't do in the cloud. Gary,
are you saying that the 1% use the onboard software at home and the 99% are in the cloud? Is this a two-class system now, or is it indicative of a hierarchy?
I think most people use desktop software, but that's changing dramatically. Is if they could just stock these Chromebooks in the stores, then I think more people are realizing and getting on the bandwagon. I mean, the ability to have free, storage, and you don't have to worry about your computer crashing. We've all had a hard drive crash at some point in our life, and you lose stuff. And the ability now to have it safely stored on Google servers, and the ability to start a document and then pull it up on your phone if you're in a restaurant talking to someone about it, and then go to the office and pull it up and not have to bring a floppy disk with you. I mean, it's huge. Alan, you got a comment?
Yeah, we have this comment from Michael Daniels. I love Google Spreadsheets. We use it every day at work and at home, mostly because of its accessibility, shareability, etc. And I think, as you mentioned, I think one of the big things is that it's really just, you've got this file that kind of exists everywhere, that you can use it everywhere, and just how you end up using it changes.
Our topic list for this show is an example. That's the only. All of us can add topics to the same document and edit it.
Yeah.
So there's revision protection. So if someone,
cloud, but
go ahead.
When you sign in with Google Chrome, it synchronizes your Chrome account no matter where you are. Bookmarks, Chrome extensions, they all load spontaneously, even with stuff that you're not using in the cloud.
To mixed results, because I've had one of my graphic designers, sometimes when I log into Twitter or Netflix, it has his mom's address filled in the username and her password filled in, because at some point when he opened up, it was logged in as me generally in Google, and he logged in to watch Netflix at work, I guess. I'm gonna have to get on about that, but and then he logged in with his mom's address, and apparently his mom used this thing to set up Twitter or something, so it's all connected to my account. And I've taken screenshots and sent them to him, and we had a chuckle about it, but that's a whole thing.
Well, I almost got divorced today because I accidentally had crossed over and using my wife's Amazon account and her Kindle account. And I'd forgotten the passwords and the usernames, and she came off the rail.
Oh, first world problems.
So I'd be very curious to know what the percentage of users are like on college campuses for cloud-based versus desktop-based, because obviously if the up-and-coming generations are using cloud-based, which if I had to guess, I would think that the younger college students would be more heavily using cloud-based. Than as you gain more users and more users, the focus is going to leave. Microsoft is not going to be focusing on desktop applications anymore, because it doesn't make sense to financially.
Anthony, this is a place where actually Google is way ahead of Microsoft. Google has been pushing Chromebooks for education for a long time. They've been pushing apps for education for a long time. A lot of schools have adopted exactly this technology for their students for exactly this reason.
That's how Apple got ahead in education. So, for years and years, they got their products in schools.
That was their big strength, yeah.
Well, two of my sons are in college, and they use Google a lot for sharing and collaborating on essays and math, and they use it all the time.
Collaborating on essays, is that what they call plagiarism nowadays? I'm joking. Yeah. I'm joking.
But that's huge, though, Alan. The amount of money you save on having to print paper and turn them in, and I mean, a teacher could review a draft. You could just share it with a teacher.
Absolutely, but here's the thing. the systems really aren't all that well set up for that sort of thing yet. I mean, they're getting closer, but 20 years ago, my school was doing things like writing papers and submitting them electronically, and Google Apps isn't really set up to do that sort of thing. That's a workflow process, and that's still very much in its infancy.
And this is kind of leaving the topic, but I feel that Microsoft is running into a very, very large problem where they're having problems with their consumer-based products, where, with Windows 8, they're having adoption problems, and, with
Windows 8
Microsoft,
is horrible.
Well,
have you used it, Monica? To give us a...
Oh my God! We just went to Best Buy. I looked at them. I looked at all the products. I was like, "You are kidding me."
Why didn't you like it?
Because
Windows 7 was a dramatic improvement over XP, and Vista sucked. XP was good, tell us specifically why didn't you like it? Because I was kind of looking forward to it, and then I'm hearing, and I remember people were so excited when it came out, and now I'm hearing stuff like you're saying. I'm seeing it getting panned.
Because it's horrible. I hate the interface with a passion. Like I fundamentally dislike it with every atom of my being. But I also asked the people that work at the store, like I said, I wanted to know. I said, like, most people who come in here and they take a look at this, what's the response you get? Because I wanted to know the average consumer. What do they normally say? And they looked at each other. There were two salespeople. They looked at each other and they laughed and they were like, most people hate it. Like,
that's because they've been brought up in all the other stuff, Apple stuff, and all these other little icons. I think Windows 8, if it started from scratch, it would be very well accepted. It's got a very good interaction on the touch screen. It works well.
So you think it's a learning curve issue?
I think it's a big learning curve issue.
A major complaint that I've heard is that Microsoft Windows 8 is very good on the touch screen, but if you don't have a touch screen,
right,
it's
exactly
terrible. So the same person was.
Well, and a touch screen is not like good for a laptop. Like, well, it's good for a tablet, but it's not good for a laptop.
Right. Most people don't have touch screens.
No, there are laptops that do touch.
Right, but most people don't have touch screens on their personal computers, on their laptops or on their desktops. They, of course, they have them on their tablets, but basically, like I was, trying to go into, is I'm not entirely prepared to say Microsoft is dead, at least in the speaking specifically to the consumer markets, but they're having major problems, it seems, with their OS, with Windows 8. They're constantly losing customers on their Office suite, and probably on all their other software packages that they sell. They're getting no penetration in the mobile phone segment, and they don't seem to be doing anything at all in their tablet segments. I think that Microsoft is having an extremely terrible time with the consumer end of their business. Now, as far as the professional and servers and companies and schools and all that stuff, I don't know. But like Alan was talking about with Chromebooks, Microsoft doesn't have any real answer to the Chromebook right now. And maybe this
nobody has an answer to the Chromebook right now, including Google.
Well, and a lot of companies, right? The Chromebook.
Anthony,
I don't know that the Chromebook has the penetration yet. I don't. It could. It could possibly.
Anthony, is Windows 8 like a complete fail, like Apple Maps? Or the BlackBerry Playbook, or that HP Tab, or is it just as Gary is saying, it's a learning curve and it's going to catch on?
Microsoft Windows 8 does not have the same problems that iOS Maps has. The difference between the two is that Windows 8 is functional. iOS Maps are not functional.
The biggest problem with Windows 8, I think, is the fact that right now, 95% of the applications that run on it aren't really meant to run on Windows 8. When you start getting some Windows 8 specific applications going, it's going to be a very, very different environment.
Well, but if they can get to that point, though.
Right, that's the problem. Is nobody seems to really care to develop for Windows 8.
Right.
Is it ahead of its time?
Had the market penetration as far as the previous devices, the previous OSs, mobile OS, but when they moved to the new OS, they couldn't get anyone to develop apps for them.
Question:
Android had the same problem early on, but they were able to get developers to develop apps. And if you can't get people to develop the apps, you never have the apps, and you'll never have the usability because you can't do anything on that platform.
Anthony, one of the big things about Windows 8 is they wanted some degree of interoperability and cross-platform with tablets
devices.
and the mobile phones and stuff with the desktop version, which didn't exist before. Tablets, of course, are all touchscreen. Mobile phones are touchscreen. Do you think they were ahead of their time in that, because I would say 90+% of desktops are not touchscreen.
No, I don't think that
this operating system, as Gary was saying, was designed for that, and it doesn't work well in a desktop environment. So maybe in a sense it's ahead of its time because most of us aren't buying these all-in-one touchscreen things.
Well, Google seems to understand it. They understand that they need to get devices, working together. But Google understands that you don't necessarily want to have the same operating system on every device. Having a TV operating system is different than a tablet operating system, and a tablet operating system is different than a desktop operating system, a personal computer operating system. So what Google has decided to do is, instead of making the operating, at least that's the way I see it, what Google has decided to do, instead of making the operating system the central point like Microsoft is attempting to do, they decided to use Chrome. And I'm not talking about Chrome OS, I'm talking about the browser. They've decided to use Chrome as those, the piece that pulls all the other pieces together. As we talked about, I don't know, last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago, Google is going to bring Google Now eventually to Chrome. So, you can see where Google is continuing to use Chrome, the browser, as the central piece that brings everything together, because they understand that you don't want to be using Chrome OS on your mobile phone, and you don't want to be using Android on your your personal computer. I'm not necessarily saying that Chrome OS is a great solution. I don't know yet, but they
hopefully by mid-2013 you'll be able to buy a Chromebook and find out.
You need a central piece, but you don't want everything to be exactly the same, because you have different experiences on different devices.
Okay, we're going to move. My final thought on that, Anthony, is I think Chrome, the browser, is a big success story, because as far as cross platforms, because it's basically the same thing on my Nexus 7, on my phone, on my desktop. It's fantastic, and the whole Google Now thing. But this gets into our next topic, lap button, which is 2012, and we're talking about 2013, but we're concluding this year and soon, but this is our final show of 2012. And Google had some real success stories, and they had some big successes and some minor successes and some less than successes and some fails, I guess. And I just, it's a time of reflection. There was a pretty good post that kind of summarized some of these things, and we've asked the panel to comment on their own things, and or the viewers, and some of us can have some thoughts on this. So, Alan, why don't you tell us? Why don't you review some of these hits and misses?
Sure. These hits and misses come from PC World. They gave us what did I say? It was 12 hits and misses. 15?
That's what it looks like.
No, there's a cover page and a summary page, and anyway, so it was interesting to see what they identified as the hits and misses, and what I thought they missed. What I thought was most interesting, Google Plus wasn't mentioned at all in their list. Some of the obvious ones were obvious. They mentioned the Nexus 7 as a hit, for example. They mentioned Google Glass, a product that isn't even a product yet, as a hit. So I mean that's pretty incredible when you can have a hit for something that isn't even released yet. They mentioned things like Google Now as a hit, and I agree with them there as well. Google Fiber got a mention as a hit. And again, that's something that's only just barely begun rolling out, and yet already they're getting tons and tons of incredibly positive feedback on that. And they got a hit on some of their doodles just being notable and constantly bringing people back. So those sorts of things. Some of the misses that were mentioned. What they called Android fragmentation. I'm still not sure that's a miss. I think Android has problems, but nobody, everyone talks about this
I'd like to
big
just say,
fragmentation issue, and nobody really says what it is.
I'd like to just say one thing on the so-called Android fragmentation is if I bought a phone in 2005, the phone that I got in 2005 would have the same software, the same exact software, in 2 years, and so it'd be the same software, right?
The problem is,
it would
Anthony,
never be updated.
The problem is, Anthony, our expectations have gotten bigger. We actually expect our phones to be updated now. And we actually, and when I say we, I include in that app developers expect to be able to create software for the latest release and have people that can run it. As opposed to, Jelly Bean, it's been out now for 6 months. It has a market penetration of 5%. That's pathetic.
Do these names imply some more marketability, like Apple's into animal names like Jaguar, Panther, and then you've got names like Jelly Bean and other foods for Android? Is there a reason for that?
I don't know if there's
did they do a study? Was there a marketing study for that?
I don't think there's a marketing study for it somehow.
That's a temporary thing, though, Alan, because I know like the Galaxy S4 is going to be huge, and they're bringing do they have Jelly Bean on the original Note? They just said they're going to bring 4.2 to that.
I don't remember, but that's the fragmentation problem. The fact that a 2-year-old phone has, the fact that the operating system from 2 years ago is still the most popular Android operating system means basically that developers can't make something for a more modern system because half of your users won't be able to use it. That's what fragmentation boils down to, plain and simple. Other ones that they mention as a miss, kind of related to that, is the whole fact. They mention as a miss the fact that Jelly Bean, for a brief period of time, could only support 11 months out of the year. They suggest that Search Plus Your World is a miss. I think it's a miss only because it isn't really fully rolled out, fully understood yet. They say Google Wallet is a miss. I have to agree with them there. Google Wallet's a miss mostly because it just hasn't gone anywhere and is now facing opposition from Verizon. Go ahead, Anthony.
My argument from day one has been that NFC is not the job of Google to push, even though they will become the ones that push it. NFC is the job of the credit card companies to push. The credit card companies are the ones that are going to get those payment terminals into the stores, and the companies like I think it's pronounced Verifone,
but the terminals are there,
right? But they're not there. If I go into Walmart, I don't even know if any Walmart has them, but some Walmarts do, most don't, at least in my area. So if I go into the largest retailer, which is Walmart, and there's not an NFC terminal there, that's not Google's fault. Google can't get you to pay with your NFC-enabled phone if, the Visas and MasterCards have not pushed it enough to, get Walmart to put it into every single one of their stores.
Well, but
now, part of the problem is Walmart does not like technology, it seems. They don't like to upgrade.
Walmart loves technology if it benefits them. The question is that they don't see how it benefits them.
So I don't think that this is a Google problem. I think that Google is going to be the one that takes it on. But I feel that in as little as a year, that every I would say like 8 out of 10 people will probably have an NFC enabled device in 1 to 2 years, because it's going to be on every new Android device in 1 to 2 years.
Anthony, we just in talking about fragmentation, we talked about how half of the Android phones are still 2 years old.
Right,
let me real quick.
Hang
on.
You can't make people buy new phones.
Listen, Anthony, but that's what they want to do. That's the issue with that. I want to weigh in on the NFC thing, and I'll weigh in the new phone thing. There's no incentive for there isn't much incentive for them to update your old phone. There's no monetary incentive in that, right? They want to sell you a new phone.
Well,
and
sure
that's another
There's
reason why if you buy a Google
okay.
phone, I have a Samsung product, but it's the closest thing you can get to a Google product, and I have a Nexus 7, and they're pushing the new versions out to these devices fast. Google has an advantage because they make money from the Play Store. So there'll be things like Ingress, which are advanced software or programs that will only run on the newer versions. And so they have a financial incentive to develop newer operating system software and push it out, whereas the phone companies don't, because all Sprint and AT&T, they want you to get a new device and get that 2-year contract up, right? So that's their incentive. There's no incentive for Sprint to push them to get a new thing. And so that's why it's exciting to see what Motorola's doing. There was a rumor now that they're working on the X phone or something, and that Google's actually going to, with their wholly owned subsidiary now, Motorola, they're actually going to produce a true Google phone, and that's exciting. And on the NFC thing, I swear to God, I've tried to use Google Wallet to play with it, just to be able to review it, and I can't find anywhere to use the thing. And there was a story recently
about the credit card companies.
No, part of the problem is Apple, though. The deal with NFC, it's not just Google or not Google, it's Apple. Apple doesn't have NFC, so you have a bunch of people running around with iPhones, and they're not using NFC, so the stores really need to consider, do they want to just play it with Androids only? So that's part of the problem with NFC.
And
yeah, what was a chain that just ordered a bunch of self-checkouts, Alan? What was the chain? Was it Walmart or Whole Foods? Or I think it was Walmart or someone like that. They ordered, I don't know, like 1,500 or 35,000, I mean, some large number. Those are wildly disparate numbers, but of self-checkout stations. It was a big contract for the company that makes them, and they said they're not going to include Google Wallet, and it was just a decision that I don't remember why, but that's distressing.
Here's what it boils down to is, and I think part of the reason it's not just Apple, although I'll agree with Oleg that it is, it's also Verizon is both on one hand wants NFC and on the other hand is trying to sabotage Google's NFC efforts. It's various other things, but it really boils down to is nobody really knows why they should want NFC. I mean, nobody ranging from the store doesn't know why they should be they should have terminals that support it. Consumers don't know why they should have phones that enable it and that use it with the checkout.
But it's popular in some countries, right? It just hasn't taken off here.
I mean, but the point is, it's popular
if you
in
forgot
those
your
because
wallet. We've all left the house and forgot our wallet.
Dan,
and had to drive back. You got your phone, you can pay.
The reason why it's popular in those is because in a lot of those countries, they never had the huge base of credit card transactions in the past that we do. So they were using their phone instead of a credit card, which they didn't have. We have that background. We have that niche that need filled already. Nobody knows why NFC is better than a credit card, and that's the problem.
Okay. Well, the wallet deal, part of the problem with the wallet is they don't have compatibility. I mean, I have a fairly new phone, and it says it's not compatible with Google Wallet.
Do you have a Verizon phone?
No, it's an AT&T.
Okay, then that's actually a carrier problem more than a compatibility problem. If you get a Verizon phone that has NFC, they're going to tell you it's not compatible simply because Verizon doesn't want it to be compatible.
So I guess, though, that my point is that this is not a miss for Google. Google understands the problem. They understand that the carriers are causing issues, and they're trying to fix the issue. They tried to fix the issue initially with the Nexus 9 when the Nexus 9 first came out, and they realized that they got so much pushback from the carriers that they had to relook at the problem, and they released a bunch of other Nexus devices. And then they tried again with the Nexus 4, cutting out the carrier and cutting down drastically on the price of the phone.
Exactly.
I think that Google does understand the problem. I don't think that Google is. I don't think this is a miss with Google. I think that there's just a lot of pushback from people that don't like what Google is doing, but Google is taking this extremely serious. I think that Google does want NFC on all of their future phones.
I think that's for sure. And I think Google sees the use of NFC as more than just the wallet payments. They see a lot of other uses for it. Anyway, I didn't want to get bogged down in wallet. We have a bunch of comments that I wanted to start getting to. This one from much earlier in the show. Thank you, Jason, for actually listening to me. His hits are Google Now, Communities. I disagree with you there, but okay. YouTube Live, and particularly the Olympics and the elections coverage. And I think that's he's right on the money there.
And concerts, they're always doing live concerts, and not just small concerts, but very popular bands.
And Jason calls Hangout marketing a hit. It's actually kind of funny. I actually just commented in YouTube that as a whole, Google's marketing has been terrible, and I think Google's marketing as a whole has been a miss. Jason continues to say on the misses, though, Google plus Messenger is a miss, and I got to agree with you there. And Google TV is a miss. And I think I'd agree with him on the Google TV. We keep hearing that this is the year for Google TV, and every year it just kind of, doesn't go anywhere. And when it comes to Google TV, I trust Jason more than most other people. From George Cozy, we have this. Google Plus miss, the total lack of text formatting tools in Google Plus. What we have now are afterthoughts and workarounds. Not sure I agree with him, but, well, okay. Furthermore, George expressed another Google miss, the Nexus Q, also known as the Google Balls. Gerwin retorts that he loves his Nexus Q. I have to say, the Q it's a great idea. It's nice. It's not bad. And I think part of the reason why Gerwin likes his so much is that
this is free.
He got it for nothing.
Everyone got
are you
their
using
Nexus
it?
Q
They're
for free.
updating it, right? They're going to update it?
Who knows what they're going to do? They haven't told us anything.
Because they delayed the shipment pending an update. People who had ordered one, right?
Pending. But then the people who pre-ordered it were sent a free version, and they took it off the order page. You can't order one anymore. So who knows what they're doing with it besides possibly reworking the whole scheme.
Very valuable item one day.
Or very worthless item. Who knows? It really kind of depends on your perspective there. This also from Gerwin. I'm going to call Google Drive and its API software development kit a hit, even though it still has a long way to go. And again, and George counters that by saying, he knows that we're fans of it, but as a commercial product, it kind of crashed. So sounds like George is saying it's a miss. I think he's got a point there. Drive, as how it was marketed as a Dropbox replacement, total miss, total failure, total catastrophe. Also, a totally stupid way to market it. But that goes back to the fact that I think Google marketing is a total miss.
Gary, do me a favor, mute your mic because we're hearing your typing sound. The camera keeps switching to you. Go ahead, Alan.
I think Google Drive, in particular, the way Google Drive and Google Docs and all of that stuff works and is really coming together is really more of a hit than I think people realize. There are large communities that are using Google Drive and Google Apps to do some amazing things that you just don't see out there too much anymore. And I think if that isn't a hit this year in 2012, it's certainly going to be a huge thing in 2013.
Yeah, if you combine AppScript with some people do amazing stuff, and you can do amazing stuff for business especially if you take the combination of Google Apps and AppScript, and storing it all in Google Drive and ubiquitous access, sharing all that stuff, it's phenomenal stuff. Even paying for it $5 a month, it's still phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, it's a heck of a deal. Okay, should I get into my thing, Alan?
Yeah, well, yeah. Let me lead this one in. Let me lead this in for you. Now, in addition to all of these misses that we've talked about, we've got a couple more that we identified, and in particular, in the past week, Dan identified a massive miss that is really making him change how he's going to be doing some stuff with Google+. So why don't you tell us about it, Dan?
Yeah, I was very disappointed and shocked. We were using the Google owned shortener, goo.gl is the domain if you want to check it out, and we were using it for everything, for all of our topics and for our different things. And so the last week's show, I about a day or so after the post I posted on Google Plus, and about a day or two after I posted it, someone commented that the links were bad for the audio version, because I make an audio MP3 and make it available, and then I link to all the live viewer comments, because a lot of people really get into that. They like to watch the comments in the order that they come in during the show, because that's content just like what we're saying. So Gerwin's wonderful comment tracker, which is part of the Hangout Toolbox now that Moritz built, is the link. I try to link to including all the shares, and we get a lot of shares. So the URL is 10 lines long, right? So you have to shorten it. And Google marked it as, if you click on there, if you go to the last week's post, you'll find it. So we're talking, I guess, the 21st, right? If you Googled, if you're watching this down the road, December 21st, 2012, I think it would be, Google Plus Week, and the links are bad. It says it's spam or a legal issue, or I forget what the thing is. So the problem I had was these links were broken now. It's shared in 23 different places. I can't edit those posts, right? Once someone shares your post, you can't edit it. So then I inquired, and I said, well, if I go to 23 different posts and comment and put 2 additional links in, then I'll be marked as I'm sure some algorithm will pick me up as a spammer, posting the same 2 links 23 different times in different places. So I was like, what do I do? And then it was suggested, well, just do it slowly or something. And I was like, this is insane. So I always thought when you made a shortened link, like with the Google shortener, that was permanent, and that's what their terms of service say. It's irrevocable, it's uneditable forever, unless it's spam or a legal issue or something like that. And it met none of those criteria. I mean, I only posted here, and then it goes to Twitter and Facebook, but I don't. I'm not spamming people with it, so it didn't make any sense.
Now, Dan,
go ahead.
Is there an appeals process for this?
Okay, there's a very obscure Google Docs form, which I filled out. I found it because there's actually a forum about the Google shortener, and I went to that forum, and the very first post, because they're sorted by the last comments, right? The very first post up there was about this issue. My link has been disabled, and actually the post was bragging about the new algorithm to prevent spam. And if you look at the post, there's all sorts of posts, and this is from January 11, right? So a year ago. And there's all these people commenting with the exact same problem I had. And there are Google employees weighing in periodically in that stream, in that post.
Oh, hey,
so they're aware of it.
At least you get Google employees weighing in on it. That's more than
for
some
a year
forums get.
And no progress. So they at some point they said, this isn't the place to report it. You should report it here. And I filled the form out, I put the link, and I explained, what's going on. Because obviously, the comments for the show and the audio MP3, it's not spam. I mean, it's ridiculous. So we can't use it anymore. And I'm sad to say, but it's not a product that meets what they say it does. So we've switched to Bitly until we find something, but they're fine. So go ahead, Alan.
And this actually goes into the other 2 stories that I put into our notes today, and that's that it basically boils down to when it works well, when it works, Google is great, but when something goes wrong, suddenly, who knows? There doesn't seem to be anybody there to help you. So,
and we even had a Google employee.
That's not totally true, Alan. Come on, that's not true.
In this case, we had a Google employee ping someone, ping two people on that team, and then they said maybe after the holidays they can fix it. Well, this is a news show. This is a weekly news show. This is time perishable material. Nobody is watching Google Plus Week from 6 weeks ago to talk, or a year ago when we're introducing the Hangouts on Air, So it's frustrating but it's a free service. I understand that. You can't expect an 800 toll-free tech support.
No, you still want it to work. But right. It's not true about Google being completely unresponsive. I have a client who's using Google Calendars, and I started basically embedding it for them, this and that, and they started losing events. And I immediately, when I posted it, that there's a problem with the calendar, I got a Google person talking to me about, working with them to get this result.
Oleg, it's funny you should mention Google Calendar.
Oh, yeah.
Because the next story that I had listed is a posting from a company who said that suddenly their Google Calendar got messed up.
Right. A paying company.
And it got messed up in such a way that basically events were being shared, scattered between various employees, including events that should not have been exposed publicly, which made it sound like the security was being violated on them. The first thing they did was, remember, this is a company who was paying for their Google Calendar.
Right.
The first thing they did was they called up their paid support line, and they said, okay, we'll look into it. And when days later they called back and said, what's the status? They said, I don't know, we're looking into it. Okay? This went round and round with absolutely no resolution, no fix, and no indication what was going on until they went public and said, hey, we think there's a Google security problem. And suddenly, mysteriously, this got escalated to somebody who then called them back and helped them resolve the issue.
Just like doctors, Google is not gods. Okay, they have their own problems. They have issues.
They have their own problems. They have their own problems. They have their own issues. But if you're paying for a product and you're paying for support, you should be getting that support.
I agree. You should be. And I haven't resolved my calendar issue yet, but I was told to get certain files for them and do certain procedures, which I haven't done yet, but I'll do it this weekend. And I'll report back on what's going to happen with this calendar, because they definitely have a problem.
And that's the thing. There are problems, there are bugs, there are issues, there are things that happen, and everyone understands and appreciates
in every company.
In every company. Everybody, and you know what? People understand that things will happen.
But the Google thing the shortener thing went on, and I'm a fan of Google. Obviously, all of us are. We wouldn't be here volunteering our time to talk about it, but. That post dates back a year, so they've been aware of the problem for a year on my shortener issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if the problem is either there's a faulty algorithm, which is understandable. You're a programmer, Oleg. You have bugs, and it takes you a while to figure them out. That's normal. Any program, right?
No, my stuff works, but go ahead.
It's pretty rock solid. But the problem is when you set up an algorithm. And if it makes a mistake, an algorithm can shut down your link, right? But then the only way to appeal it is through a very difficult to find reporting process that doesn't result in a timely solution.
Yeah.
So an algorithm shuts you down, but a human has to reinstate it. And now it's been a week, right? Almost a week, and they're violating their own description of the product, but it's a year. It's back a year. At some point, it's hard to explain away. It's not like something they discovered a week ago. It's back to January 2011, and here we are, January 2013 coming up. So it's almost 2 years that this issue has been repeatedly posted to where it's the #1 post on their forum, and so that's. At some point, it's hard to come up with excuses for something like this, because I'm a huge fan. It's wonderful product, but if they're going to disable it, and I can't edit it now. Right now, there are 23 posts of the last episode of Google Plus Week that people have shared, and thank you very much for sharing it. We always appreciate it. That have 2 bad links on 2 very popular things. The audio version, shockingly, gets a couple hundred downloads a week, and I had to be like bugged into doing it because I didn't think anybody would want it. but it gets 150, 180 a week.
1,000, yes.
So now that link's broken, right? So and not only is it broken, but when someone clicks on it in 23 different posts, I'm being labeled as a spammer.
Right.
I have a problem with that. And again, this is a 2-year-old issue they haven't dealt with. So
Now-
I think
now,
it's
Dan-
fair to go ahead.
Dan, we've got some tech support question from Gerwin. He wants to know if you created the links while being logged in or if you were trying to do it anonymously.
I used the
Anonymously.
Chrome extension while logged into Google, and I think I
That
don't
does
know
it
the answer.
anonymously.
I can't 100% say, but it's I sometimes will go to the goo.gl site, but almost always I use their built-in Google supplied Chrome extension. And I would just I would highlight it and right click, and it says copy this to Google. But again, if that's an issue, then they should fix that issue, because I shouldn't have to get an MIT PhD to figure out how to use their official extension.
Right, and this goes back to a lot of Google products. Is where people run into problems, and why does it always seem to be so convoluted and complex to find the help, to resolve the issues, to
The non-existent help.
Because of the size of the company, Alex. The company is big, tens of thousands of employees, and it's a usual big company problem.
I think it's more than just that, though. I mean, if you compare it to Microsoft or Apple, two also very big companies, both of whom I believe are bigger than Google, they seem to have those sorts of things better streamlined in a lot of ways, in a lot of
I
places.
dealt with Apple years ago. Their support was horrible, absolutely horrible. I don't know how it is now.
Craig
but it
loves
used to be
Craig,
unacceptable.
I
Part of
hate
it, though-
Apple, but
part of it,
Craig,
though,
Craig
is-
raves about their support now.
Part
I
of
just
it,
think
though-
there's a problem when there's a problem that they've known about for 2 years, and now we have to switch to some service with a Libyan domain. That's a problem.
Is it a Libyan domain?
Yeah, Bitly. I was worried that when they were killing Gaddafi, they was going to shut down all the domains just to screw us. And I don't know if somebody reported me to screw with us, or if it was a faulty
Must have
algorithm.
been.
But if an
It
algorithm
must
can
have
shut
been,
you
yeah.
down,
Too much criticism of
you know.
Google, so they decided to shut you down. That's what it is.
should we move, Alan, or did you have any?
Yeah, no, I think that was pretty much it. Let's move on to the final issue that I had come up with. Another fairly recent miss is apparently Google helped sponsor a bike safety seminar on their campus. It was either earlier this month or late last month. And in the sign-up page for it, which was done using a Google form, you had to give your Google Plus profile ID, and they gave detailed instructions on how to give your profile ID. And then, in order to get preferred seating for it, you had to have reviewed 5 businesses on Google Local. And we've talked in the past about how much I dislike Google Local. I'm not even going to go into that right now. I think this, however, is kind of an indication of a case where Google kind of overreached in whatever they were doing, and they got smacked down about it. When I last looked at the page, they had changed the page and no longer required you to review some local establishments, but they did still ask you for your Google Plus profile, which is kind of interesting for something that's essentially a bike seminar. It's a seminar on securing your bike. So I don't know. I thought that's a little bit of a reach. That's kind of feeding into people's fears about Google as a invading privacy type thing. I wonder if anyone else had any other thoughts on that or any other misses they've heard of from Google. Not hearing anything.
Because they didn't have any more. No, usually it's one of these deals. Nobody's ever going to be completely happy with this volume of people using the products, number of products, everything. It's always going to be something that's a miss. I mean, it's always going to be the case. If you look at it overall, I don't know, myself personally, I use Google religiously for a lot of different things.
Sure.
And I don't use it because I like the name or the logo.
But here's the thing. It's, at the same time, though, we're going to call them out when we feel they make mistakes. When we feel they have a miss,
But you have to be reasonable, though. You have to be reasonable, understanding.
I don't think there's anything we talked about this evening that wasn't a reasonable miss on their part.
I just want to make it from the standpoint, like I said, if you look at doctors, for example, you go to a hospital or you go to a doctor, and what is the problem? I mean, how do you resolve this? And if the guy has even a possibility of saying something, I'm not sure, or I don't know, or we can try this, and you're like, I mean, what is wrong with you? I need a solution. I don't need some maybe, possibly, because we expect them to be like gods. They need to take care of this problem. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to do it. You're the doctor. You should do it. It's the same expectation of this deal with computer companies saying that the stuff needs to work flawlessly all the time, or you're crap, basically.
No, I disagree with you there, Oleg. Oleg, we've never, we're at the point with technology that nobody says that stuff needs to work flawlessly. What we do think, though, is that when something malfunctions, when something screws up, when there's a problem, that the resolution to the problem at least makes some sort of logic, some sort of sense. A resolution to a problem that, is kind of on hold for a year, that doesn't make sense. Having help files and help forums that are obscure or difficult to find and are the only way that you can get help, that doesn't make sense. Some of these are well-solved problems. And it feels like sometimes that Google just keeps tripping up over itself on these things.
And why do you think that is, Alan? What do you think the real problem is? Do you know?
Because the marketing department is running the tech support department.
What marketing department?
Exactly.
No, I don't think that's it. Do I know the reason? No. I've got some guesses, but they're guesses from an outsider. I think part of it is for Google, their biggest success was search. And search required extremely little support. It required extremely little of all of this other stuff. And it was a success that was very much driven by word of mouth. Yes, Pam?
No, Monica was leaving.
Goodbye to somebody. Okay, sorry. See, I'm missing some messages. So this is part of their culture, and they just haven't adapted that culture well enough or fast enough.
Yeah, I disagree with you.
Okay. What do you think the problem is, or do you think there's no problem?
No, I do think there's a problem. But what I think the problem is, because I work for a really large matrixed organization, I see kind of similar, not IT problems, but I see similar issues. And I think what it is that they have siloed these little departments and these little projects so much that they don't communicate with each other. So they've got this group working on this project and they implement it and it screws up another.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'll agree with you there. And in fact, one of the things I find funniest is when people will talk about something like we did this evening. We'll say something like, Gmail has filters. Why doesn't Google Plus has filters? Well, they're two completely different silos.
Yep, and they're in different locations. I think the groups that work on those two things aren't even in the same building. Well, maybe the same campus, but not the same.
But even
building.
when they try to communicate, like Pam in my post, I don't want to say who, but a Google employee Plus mentioned two people on the team of the URL shortener
during Christmas week.
Correct.
Okay.
My issue is that, and that's a very fair point. We still haven't heard anything. And she may or may, I don't know if they were the right people.
So in California, they're not allowed.
An algorithm can take you down, but it takes a human to, and it's a big deal. It's not a URL dying. What if I had sent that out to 50,000 subscriber email list and the link was broken and it takes a week to fix it? I mean, that's.
But Alan,
insane.
it probably. I mean, Dan, it probably happened. Sorry, it probably happened last week too, and the week before. You just caught it this week. Someone said something this week,
Someone
and
said,
it just
like,
happens.
in fact, the Google employee said, I've noticed that in the past with your posts.
Right, and it just happens to be Christmas week, and I have to tell you, in California, they don't have a use it or lose it policy, so companies are forcing the employees to take vacations. They have to take their vacation, so. They're not there.
So
I'm sorry. Wait till next week.
So I don't want to say that there's not a tech support program, because there obviously is a tech support program, but I feel year after year after year that somewhere around between December 20th and January 7th, and every day in between those two dates, I feel like Google is completely useless, whether it be through tech support or just doing things that they want to be successful in doing and that they want to be putting a lot of effort into, but between those holiday weeks, that basically the Googleplex is more or less completely shut down. So anything, including things that Google wants to push out very quickly, just gets pushed drastically onto the back burner until Google and the rest of the country exits that holiday period.
And that's going to be a problem though when they start doing more retail stuff. I mean, Android was trying to push all of their new apps. They had promotions going for the past week or so, pushing their stuff. If the company is not going to do any customer service during this period of time, they're going to have problems. I can tell you, the Apple stores certainly had their customer service.
And remember that TV commercial?
Well, I have to tell you, in Europe, most companies are completely shut down between Christmas and New Year's. They force the employees to take a week vacation.
You know, like in Greece?
I mean, in like Sweden. I mean, in Germany. But maybe Pam, even in the Netherlands.
Pam, let me give you another example though. This is with a German company that I actually had dealings with in the past
My company
week or so.
is German as well.
Okay, the German company that I had dealings with, they had a promo that ran on the 21st. It was so successful that they had on the order of 100 to 1,000 times the number of orders than they have ever had on a single day before. So let me just finish, or you're waving goodbye to somebody again. So their ordering system was massively backlogged. I got email from them on December 24th from the German company representative basically saying, we got your request, but we're a little backlogged, so it may take us a few more days to finish processing things. This was on the 24th. This is massively, massively good customer service. There was a technical problem with fulfilling the orders. They understood it. They responded as quickly and as well as they could, given their capabilities, and they were doing it on the weekend before Christmas. That is wonderful customer response, and that was from a company in both Germany and the U.S.
So that is an extremely good case of customer service, but I don't necessarily think that we should be talking about Google's retail operations during the holiday season until they fix the retail operations during the rest of the year, because right now, if you go into the Google Play Store and you try to order any of the devices that is not a Nexus 7, they're sold out. You can't order, you can't order a Nexus 10. You can't order a Nexus 4. So you're talking about like five or so SKUs of items that you absolutely can't order. So now you can basically order 3 of the 9 SKUs of products that they have.
So Anthony, I mean, let me get your take on it. Is the fact that they're selling out on almost all of their products a hit or a miss?
It's a hit for them because obviously they're selling through 100%, well, basically 110% or a higher percentage beyond 100% of their inventories. So that's a hit for Google, but also it's a miss for Google because they're missing out on potential sales. I can tell you right now that I want to order a Nexus 10 tablet, but I don't have the money at the moment. But the fact that they are sold out of the Nexus 10 at the moment, even though I'm not ready to purchase it, is very frustrating, because I know that that means that their system is backordered at least 8 weeks, because that's when their devices go off of, first they go, they're available, and then they go on back order for a week and up to 8 weeks, and then after 8 weeks they get the sold out status. So that means that, from my perception, that they're back ordered at least 8 weeks, and that's very frustrating as a consumer. So again, like I'm saying, Google needs to get their entire retail system in order before they can fix the holiday, systems.
Absolutely agreed. Anyway, final item. This one definitely more of a hit on the Google side. There is apparently a group calling itself Homes for Hackers, which is trying to do what they're calling fiber tourism, and that's using Airbnb, which lets people basically rent rooms in other people's houses, to specifically rent rooms in the Kansas City area where they will have access to the high-speed Google Fiber. It's an interesting approach. Has anyone else heard of this? Any other thoughts from the panel?
I haven't specifically heard about it, but if you're traveling on business and to be able to, get a extremely absurdly fast connection in the location that you're staying, that's a huge incentive to be renting that location over any other location.
This story actually was sort of mixed in that he wasn't getting the response he was expecting, but I think Google Fiber is a huge game changer. And there was a story recently where they when Vic Condotra was on our show, he said, I referred to it as an experiment, and he repeated that. He said the experiment, whatever. Now they're past the experiment stage, and they've actually come out and said it's not an experiment, and we're looking for other places to do this, but on their terms. Because remember, when they first did this, there was a bidding war. They said, we want to do this somewhere, and all these communities could go to a page and fill out, we'll give you these incentives to do it, to make it cost efficient. And the fact that it's emerged from just a raw internet throughput, up and down at fast speeds into a full-blown cable package. And I think they lined up, I forget, one of the companies that has a bunch of cable channels on there. I think it's going to grow, and I think the more footprints they get, I can't imagine. I'd love to get someone, and I know a couple people there, but we need to get someone in Kansas City who lives there to get their perspective on this, because I'm really curious why anyone would go with the local cable provider over this, because the price, I think, is competitive or lower, and it offers so much more, except the cable channels. They're not there yet, but the more footprints they get, and Google knows this, the more footprints they are in, the less likely a cable channel is going to boycott them because it's a different model.
Well, I think that
it's such an exciting time, and this whole thing, and then I'll shut up and let Anthony talk, but the whole concept of Google changing this game, and God, if they could do a la carte, if they could introduce that, down the road. But this is an exciting time, and this is sort of like the first dial-up connections. And like I worked at Randolph-Macon Academy, we introduced, it was called RMA Online. I pushed hard for this, and we actually were the first high school level, middle high school in the country that had internet in every room on campus, because I was so into this. This is like in '93 or something, and it was dramatic, and it was a big selling point for the school. We had Ethernet ports in every single room, and we got a T1 line that was shared. Back then, that was a lot of speed, right? 1.544. But this is kind of that same thing. This is not really being appreciated as the revolution that it's going to end up being, in my opinion. Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, and some of the reasons that you're not getting as many people using the service as they may hope is, first of all, there's a price to entry. I don't know what the price of entry is, but I know that it's going to be higher than the local cable company, because the cable company's price to entry is free plus your monthly dues.
But Anthony, that's it. There is actually no price to entry. If you sign the 2-year contract.
Oh, I thought that there was a price for.
If you signed the 2-year contract, the installation was free. If you wanted the free internet, which was at least as fast as what the cable company was offering, that free internet was guaranteed free for, I want to say it was 5 years, but it may have been less than that. But you're essentially paying for the installation spread out over the first year. So you could either pay for, I think it was $200 installation up front, or pay it over the course of 12 months, and you'll get the rest of the time free.
Okay, so that's not a reason.
Right, the cost of entry, much lower than cable. That was a big deal at the time.
The other problem, though, is that not everywhere in Kansas City can you get, not the fiber hoods are not in the entirety of Kansas City on either side. So if you're not in a fiber hood, you can't get fiber. No matter, you could pay $1 million for it, but you're still not going to get it.
Right, and that is an issue that it's still rolling out. It's still early. Not all the fiber hoods have signed up, and Google hasn't made it clear if those fiber hoods will ever get it. So there's still a lot of uncertainties involved in this project, I think. So, Dan,
and
I think we're...
I think it hasn't been celebrated enough, the fact that they're giving it away for lower income folks who want, I think it's a 3 megabit or megabyte per second connection. It's free. You just have to pay for the install, which is fair. And they spread that out over 2 years, as you said. But I think there is a free entry point for just the internet. I just think they're doing it right. And it's going to, just like Google Plus, on day one versus today, it's dramatically different. And I think Google Fiber, we're going to see the same thing. And Anthony has a comment, and then we'll do our final thoughts.
So Jeff says that cities need to roll out fiber with or without help by Google. The cable companies are trying to make this illegal, though. While I am not a socialist by any means, this does not make sense to me.
This does make sense to me.
Yeah, this does make sense to me.
This being the municipalities rolling out.
All right. It's been a wonderful week, and we had a wonderful Christmas and Hanukkah, and I guess Kwanzaa's going on, and this is wonderful. Vic is over in Middle Earth, posting wonderful pictures. He got to race. Alan, what was it? It was one of the America's Cup boats, right?
Was it? I missed some of. I must have missed that.
Yeah, he. I'm going to tell Vic you don't subscribe to his posts, and you're in big
trouble.
trouble.
I do subscribe to his posts. I don't think I saw that one though. Maybe he's blocked me.
Maybe he's blocked you. He's on the long list of people who have blocked Alan. I'm just kidding. But let's do our final thoughts. Let me start with Pam. We'll get Pam. Pam, who's celebrating her German connection tonight.
My German connection with my American Belgian beer.
I lived in Brussels for 2 years, and whatever bad weather you've ever had, you have nothing on Brussels, let me tell you. Pam, any final thoughts on this was a much happier week than the week or two before that. What are your final thoughts about anything? It's a time for family, right?
Yeah, but I'm here by myself, and I love it.
Oh, Pam is using all of the internets. She is engaging with her community, as all good plussers should, right?
Exactly. It gives me time to moderate.
Oh, my goodness. And moderation is not one of Pam's strong suits, so we admire your
Not
perseverance.
really, no. Yeah.
Always a delight, Pam. We love you to death. Oleg, and a quick programming note, I'm going to do another Hangout on Air after this. I'm going to do a video on how my setup looks and shortly after we close this one. So if you're interested in that at all, please stick around for that. Oleg, I see your beautiful children on the wall there, and every time you came on, no offense to you, but my eyes were drawn to those wonderful kids, and I remember your son one day when you walked out of the room and he came up to the computer, and we were like, tell us some secrets about Oleg. Tell us some embarrassing stuff. And he went right into a total type A personality, just awesome. So this is a family week, right? This is a wonderful, joyous time when you
Absolutely.
get to eat a lot of food and hang out.
Yeah. We're doing New Year's. In our house, New Year's is usually a big celebration. So I wanted to wish everybody a very happy New Year. I'm glad we survived the December 21st bug, if you want to call it that. And just good to see everybody again. And just want to stop by, say hi. And best wishes for the new year. And hopefully next year will be much better than this year.
Awesome. And I love that picture. That's a beautiful picture of your babies. That's great. Anthony, anything grabbed your interest this week?
Well, this week I saw a video about the difference between Holland and the Netherlands, and all this information about how there is no country of Holland, and it's the country of the Netherlands, and it's the the state or something other of Holland. So that was very interesting. But personally, I for the very first time today made the What's Hotness on Google Plus. So that gave me a certain level of perspective that I don't think someone of my stature on Google Plus would be able to understand without actually dealing with it. And it wasn't so much dealing with it as just encountering it, and moderation of some comments that I would have never got on any of my other posts. So that was very interesting and definitely a learning and experience.
It's a trip the first time you come back to your computer and that red box is blown up. You're like, what in the heck happened? Hey, say hi. We got... Say hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How old are you now?
8. I mean 0 plus 0.
See, he's definitely in binary mode. He's a programmer like
Sorry.
Pops.
Yep.
That's your picture on the wall, right? You got a haircut since then.
Yep. I know. I noticed.
Number of them.
5
Awesome.
years of haircuts to be
And you
exact.
got some alfalfa thing going on in the back.
Hmm?
You got an alfalfa thing going on in the back. You don't even know what alfalfa is.
He
You think it's
doesn't know, but you will.
an herb.
I will. What? My back is long?
No, it's okay.
You're fine. You're fine.
Anyway.
You look great. All right.
Uh,
Alan Furstenberg, final thoughts on this wonderful Google Plus week.
Dan McDermott. I don't know. All I can say is it has been quite a 2012. I think about it. I think of some incredible high points. I think of some absolutely miserable low points. And all I can say is 2013, bring it on. How about you, Dan?
Absolutely. I'm very excited. This has been a wonderful year, and all of my friends, who I've met on Google Plus, it's kind of an obsession, really. I love it, and I'm looking forward to continuing it in 2013. So I hope to all of our viewers, we thank you so much for watching and commenting and telling folks about the show. We really appreciate it. Those of you who share it, we appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you very much. And we look forward to 52 more episodes coming up in the next year. So have a wonderful New Year's. Be safe and have a wonderful Google Plus week.